Hello, and welcome to the Wiki episode of our DangerCast podcast. Today with us we have our hosts, me, Danger Ross, Jake, and Jon Marc. Our special guest for today is TheOriginalCJ. He is the Wiki man of our community and Discord. Please introduce yourself, CJ.
Hello all, I am CJ. I am, as Danger Ross just said, I am the Wiki guy, or Wiki man, as I'm often known.
Man is short for manager.
Yes, manager. That's exactly what I am. I am the founder and the main admin of the Superfighters Wiki, where basically we post all information about the game Superfighters and Superfighters Deluxe, talking about various strategies, tips, and tricks to be able to become a better Superfighter from what you may not actually know how to do in the game currently as of yet. So hopefully you could stop by and just take a look at the wiki to kind of improve your game and just become a better player overall. I want to talk about like what I actually do in real life. I don't know. I'm just a guy in college. I'm a New York guy in college, and that's pretty much the most interesting thing I do outside of SFD. So, yeah. Pretty thought-provoking.
I remember you had some trouble with cooperation in your wiki. How did that go?
I still kind of have just a little bit of like issues with just trying to get people together and just get them to motivate to start editing the wiki. But I think a lot of the problem is people don't know what to kind of add and what they could really feel is good to actually put into the wiki. Like I just posted very recently that there was a page I felt like was missing a lot of content. Like it was a very general page when you feel like it should be more broad, but people really just don't know what to add to it, and that's because it's just they just don't really know what they could possibly add on to it that would actually be substantial. So there's a lot of communication problems. So that's actually I opened up a Discord just for it, just so we could kind of like talk about more of this and try and get words out and ideas out and get people to write them. So I got a whole bunch of people organizing projects. I have a document just to improve upon what we do on the wiki. Another big thing we did was we moved the wiki to a different platform, one that loads a little better and one that works with more computers. Like, for example, our old platform was just like an advertisement breeding ground where basically it would spend more time loading advertisements than the actual page. So I moved it that it would load the actual page. Then if they were doing advertisements, it would load the advertisements. So you'd at least be able to view the page before the advertisements.
So, how does editing this wiki feel different from editing other wikis? Do you have like any knowledge of that? Have you done this before?
Well, I think it's not as easy to edit on this wiki, mainly because it's kind of like out of the way. And you're more encouraged to edit on it if you're a user, which is exactly what I was hoping to kind of do. Because another problem with the old wiki was we just got random people coming in and just like griefing pages, and then all have to roll back those pages. So it really encourages you more to edit this if you're a member of the wiki. But editing on this wiki is actually a lot more smooth, it seems. Despite that, like it's not as encouraging for you to edit it as a guest or as a person not registered with an account. But it's still easier to edit it, at least when you're a member. So like I'm going to edit it right now. Like I just clicked edit. It allows you to view the formatting of how other people would see it. Or if you're not really into how that would work, you could change it from visual editing to source editing, which is basically like a dot text file. It allows you to edit more like just the words for it. And it's also just faster and more efficient.
I got an edit for you. I got an edit for you right now.
Oh boy, thank you.
On the home page of the Superfighters Deluxe wiki, I notice in the first sentence, it says, "Meet Superfighters, the game series about brutally smashing, slashing, and shooting your enemies until only one man is left standing." Now, I don't know if this is a stylistic choice or you're a dummy, but
Whoa.
Where's my Oxford comma?
Your Oxford comma.
Where is my Oxford comma?
Well,
He got you there.
I'd show you a few places it could be put, but you wouldn't like one of them.
Ooh,
Yeah, right. That was
Oxford
pretty spicy.
colon.
Oxford colon. God. If you're talking about a semicolon, I'm gonna be very disappointed in all
He's
of
talking
you.
about an Oxford comment. I can't believe you just debunked this man live on air.
There should just be a comma after slashing, is all I'm saying, you know?
Slashing, comma, and shooting. You're editing
Yep.
this.
Isn't punctuation a real problem in the wiki though? Since random people
Oh my
edit
god,
it.
hold on. I got an edit that.
Ooh, dodging the question again. I see.
Hold on. No, I have a real zinger. So someone just edited the pistol.
Pistols.
Nice.
All right, so let's see the differences between this. All right, so someone tried to edit the grammar on this page, and I don't think they really did a good job. They misspelled accuracy.
Uh-oh. How do you spell accuracy?
That is
Well,
Pop quiz.
Well, spelling accuracy
Pop
is
quiz.
oh god. The spelling of accuracy is ACCURACY.
Oh, yeah?
However,
I
when
knew
this
that.
person changed it, they spelled it ACURICY.
Oh.
Now, I have no idea what possessed this person to edit the word when it was spelled correctly in the first place. And also, it would actually point out that, hey, you misspelled this word. Also, someone said the pistol will kill in exactly 13 bullets, which may be true. Probably is. I wouldn't know. I haven't played SFD in a while, so it's my bad. Instead of saying the fire rate is higher than the Magnum, they said the fire rate is bigger than the Magnum.
Bigger.
I like the word choice. It's very stylish.
And they also edited from has a larger clip size than that of the Magnum to the pistol contains more bullets than the Magnum.
Well, that's better because the pistol is not clip fed; it's magazine fed.
This is true. So, I don't if it's true that it can kill in 13 bullets, then that's all fine. But the fact that it said bigger, the fire rate is bigger, and
I
they
like
misspelled
that.
accuracy, that's like 2 for 4.
I'm really wondering why they just misspelled accuracy. Why did that irk them? They didn't like
Just to
that.
give you that dilemma.
Yeah, I don't know if they I don't know if they're mainly English. I don't know. Did they rewrite the entire thing? But they didn't really seem to rewrite the entire thing because most of it is unchanged.
So how did you find this page? How did you find this mistake just now?
All right, so on the left side of the wiki, there's navigation, and the third option is recent changes. From recent changes, you'll be able to see every single change made on the wiki, from pretty much today to about
The beginning of time.
Actually, not the beginning. Yeah, actually, not the beginning of time. I think you could actually hold on. So 50. Yeah, so you could change. So I could change it right now. The last 30 days, and there hasn't been any more changes than since the 16th of January. Which also goes to show you that not a lot of people just come onto the wiki and then just edit it right away. I usually have to inspire people to kind of take the initiative themselves. Which is exactly why I got the Discord. I up a forum post for any questions that may be bigger, or maybe some more interesting topics they might want to bring up.
So
And I just have a whole bunch of other projects that I'm trying to get people on board with right now.
do you think there should be a system to allow people to, or to filter out people who would be less beneficial to the wiki? Or are you just relying on the fact that there's not a lot of people editing it, and the people who are just
that's
have
the
more
thing.
interest?
The people who are editing it might not just have a lot of writing experience and really just don't know what to write. I'm sure that their intentions are good, but they just need to kind of slowly get into the flow of understanding how to word things properly and how to write things. So I'm hoping that, just keeping them involved and just encouraging them to stay around, just keep them involved with the community will help them kind of get into this flow. Okay, I could actually get down with this. It'll make them want to just put more information, make them want to get more dedicated. I think if you discourage people from getting involved, that kind of means that you're not really welcoming them to edit this. And then what happens is you get a lot of people who just don't feel like they should be involved at all. Because why would you be involved if nobody feels welcome here? So I'm kind of keeping it open right now just to see if I can, to get people involved. I can lead people to kind of look at the wiki, but I can't make them edit it.
You don't have very much viewership either, so you just have to rely on the people you have.
Yeah, the viewership is kind of low. I actually get emails to my main email account about like viewership of the wiki, if things have been changed on the wiki that I need to know about, and just a summary of what I need to do. Or what has been done on the wiki. Like that's usually what my moderation consists of, is whatever I get in emails and do, going down to navigation, looking at recent changes.
I'll show you moderation.
Okay, let's move on to a different side of this topic.
We have an art submission.
Oh yeah, this will all be in a podcast. Don't worry about it.
Quinterball dabbing.
Mm-hmm.
Me, Quinterball dabbing. I had the best dab ever on Friday.
Nice.
First sighting of Quinterball. Oh yeah, Quinterball
your
is
best
also Super Fighter, where he used to be. Just some quick trivia.
That was
Also known as
long-
Jake.
Super Fighter.
Wow. Way to dox me.
Reported for griefing.
So, where does this information come from? How do you get the information for this wiki stuff?
Most of it is just done via testing. Like, for example, like you literally just go into a game and you test how many bullets it takes to kill a person with a pistol, with various different weapons.
I remember
test a whole bunch of damage values. And I know Bash did a lot of scripting testing, where he used the API to actually test the exact number of damage people would take, or he did a ton. There's a whole lot of scripting examples of this done, and there's hold on, I actually think I'm gonna pull up an image. I'm gonna kind of link it here. I'm gonna link the page that Splinter actually did a test on explosion radius just by going into a game, literally sitting next to a propane tank and testing it at various distances, and then he actually drew the actual explosion radius. I just posted it in the link right there. You could take a look at it. He just stood at various points and just shot at a propane tank and would test the explosion damage.
I mean, you could also look into the in-game code, which I know Lunatic does a lot, the leader of the LEM.
Yeah,
right?
I'm pretty sure Bash does it a lot. Motto also does quite a bit of it. Motto's actually stepped up and said I'd lead the API project. So I said, yeah, just get whoever you want to help you edit that. If you need any, I'm sure I'll post it here. If anyone's interested in helping you, they'll come to you. If not, then I mean, just take your time and do it. Like I can't force people to be involved in things. They have to want to do it.
Yeah, we also do have a few good resources in this community. Motto, for example, is going to university learning computer science, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's very good with all of the coding he does. I do a little bit of coding, but not that much. I'm not a computer science major. I'm actually a mechanical engineering major. So a lot of the coding I know how to do is just because a lot of the programs I have to operate require it.
Engineering is more like logic, I believe, right?
Engineering's logic, mathematics, and like basic like trigonometric and applied mathematical reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really directly code based. A lot of it's also understanding how electronics operate, because I'm kind of doing a general engineering degree, but I'm focusing in mechanical engineering. So to really just show, I'll really graduate with a mechanical engineering degree, but I've also done all of the other parts of engineering, which is electrical, computer. It's weird. I can't really explain it. I don't really know how to explain City University to anybody who doesn't go to it.
So, guys, after hearing what CJ had to say, do you think you're going to edit the wiki now? Or...
You better.
Yeah.
Or else.
You're making him
CJ.
cry.
I'm not gonna hold a pistol to your face and just say edit the wiki. No, I'm not gonna do that.
That's kind of what we do to you, honestly.
Well,
Exactly what we did.
it's actually kind of my job to just be on the wiki, so I'm pretty much here anyway. This is my domain. I'm also a forum mod, but you know, Clippy and Lunatic do that more than I do.
Yeah, it's more their domain. We're gonna have a topic with Clippy later episodes. So you
If you want to
cover
invite me
that.
back for that, I'd love to hear what Clippy has to say.
Yeah. So should we move on from this? Is there any more content to discuss?
Yeah, I think we're moving on to our next segment.
let's go for it.
Opinions on Vor, the pros
No,
and
no.
That's for the next episode,
Oh, right,
Jon Marc.
sorry.
Yeah, save for
Oh,
later episodes,
Lord.
sure. Anyway,
The
there was the
lore
topic of
episode.
games. You know, what kind of games have you been playing recently this week? Perhaps.
Well, I play normie. I play all the normie games: Overwatch, PUBG.
Super Fighters.
Super
yeah, I
Fighters.
got-
Actually, yeah.
Deluxe.
I've been reminded of
Superfighters.
Super Fighters
You have-
recently.
If you don't say Super Fighters, you won't be on the podcast anymore.
True.
That's not true.
I play Super Fighters every week.
I haven't
But
told you this, CJ, but this podcast is more of a closure to those good old days when we used to play.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is kind of as a game develops, you have a lot of love for it, but it's not the same. It doesn't give you the same feeling as it used to. I
Yeah.
think that's the case for a lot of games. Just like, you start getting into it, you're really excited about it, but then as it just goes along and along, you get tired of certain things, and certain things don't change. And then usually you get back into it because you like what you did, but then you also realize why you were frustrated about it.
Well, we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, and we said that back then the community was much smaller, so we were able to communicate more often with each other. So it brought us a bit
and it was
closer
much
together.
more close, but as the community grew larger and larger, more people
So,
started joining.
what was your experience with this? How did you do in Super Fighters?
I was never good at Super Fighters.
Well, on skill base, what are your experiences?
I really loved making maps. I still do like to make maps in Super Fighters. I just think it's hard for me to kind of make maps when there are such much more talented people out there than I am at it. Motto's very talented with API, so I'd rather someone with better experience contribute more to the community than just me. I feel like
there's people less talented than you, though.
it's true. I'm kind of like the midway. I'm average. I'd
There will
say.
always be someone who's better than you. Also, someone who's worse than you.
It's true. It is true. I just don't have the same passion for it that I used to, I guess.
hmm
Uh,
This game has
Mainly
an
because it feels like I don't know if I should be making classical brawling maps anymore. Because but I feel like what is this game without the classical brawl maps?
Oh, right. If you're wondering why this podcast is much quieter than the last, it's because we're missing one important member. Nigga? Yeah, he's been having internet problems, so he's not able to join this time.
Yeah, net neutrality and all that.
Yeah.
Neutrality. Trump stole his internet.
It's true.
Thanks, Trump.
Here's
Thanks,
your
Don-
Trump.
Thanks, Donald Trump.
Ooh, you tell him.
I absolutely
time you say it,
destroyed
Gets a
him.
bit weaker.
He loses a vote every time you say Trump.
Every time you say Trump, Donald Trump just will not win the next election.
That's a lot of not winning.
It's actually, I think it's losing.
He should have lost already. What's going on?
Is this loss?
What's happening?
Is this loss? When are we gonna have a loss episode of the
We
podcast?
have a loss episode.
We need to explain the meme loss. Nobody understands it.
Nobody
It's a
Maybe we
lost
should-
art. It's a lost art.
No, just.
It's a lost art.
Jon Marc, draw loss.
Draw loss.
Way ahead of you. No,
He's
not
already
actually.
doing it.
I'm drawing a screenshot from Super Fighters.
Ooh.
Ooh.
This is what actual combat is like in Super Fighters.
I already have
Oh.
gameplay in the last episode. I edited it
hope-
in.
Well,
I
this
hope it's just
episode
like-
will have even more.
Yeah, let's record ourselves playing as Intros.
But
That's a
then
good idea.
all of a sudden someone presses grab and then they just throw you off a cliff and you die.
We
Mhm.
could do separately from the podcast. We could just play video games.
Oh wait,
That requires
CJ,
too much
CJ.
focus.
how did
Yes.
you organize the wiki? I'm kind of interested about that.
I literally was just like, hey, I was thinking, Super Fighters is a pretty complex and interesting game. Can I open up a wiki? And I'm pretty sure Gert was just like, yeah, go for it, man. I was like, okay. So I literally just went to the closest free domain I could find, which was I think Wikia at the time, which
It was
called,
Wikia.
yeah, which is now called Fandom or something. And basically, I just started a new wiki. I opened up an account, and I was like, okay, guys, if you want to make the wiki great, come over here and just fucking. Oh man.
Making fun of me. So Wikia, it's still Wikia, like the web address, but I think it's called Fandom is the name. But when you
Yeah,
go to
now
any
it's called
Wikia site,
Fandom.
they're all still .wikia.com.
Yeah, it's very strange. The whole reason why we left it was they loaded the advertisements first, and then the articles. And I think Lunatic brought it up to me, and I was like, you know what? I don't think this is a good idea. So then I was like thinking, like, where else could I go? And then that's when Gamepedia came up, and that's where a lot of the bigger games have their wikis and all their members going to. So I was like, you know what? Superfighters is going to become a bigger game. We'll just open up a Gamepedia wiki. And
is there a different application process for starting a Gamepedia?
It's much longer and it's much more involved. Like, I actually had to talk to like an actual representative to try and get the wiki transferred over into Gamepedia. Like, I had to actually talk to people and just let them know what I wanted to do. I had to be more involved in the process.
Did you have to prove SFD was real?
I had to, no. Well, I actually did have to put whatchamacallit, I had to put the domain of the game. I had to put the game site up. It's just like a long application, and then you have to wait like a week for them to go over the paperwork and basically just prove that you're a game that exists.
Does that make you feel more professional?
That's what I was kind of thinking. Like, I was thinking, like, you know what, this wiki needs to be a lot more professional. It needs to be a lot more out there, because SFD is going to be like an actual fully released game on Steam. And, you know, the more professional your community looks, the better.
So it's said.
Well, you know.
That's the plan.
You know, if it ever gets out of pre-alpha.
I hope Steam brings in new people.
Technically, it's in beta now?
It is in
but
beta.
It's not a paid beta. They were going to make it a paid beta, but then they're like, you know what? We lied. We're not charging.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, especially not like right now. They just all of a sudden moved it out of beta, and everyone was just like, whoa, hold on a second.
Oh yeah, they also changed roadmap a little bit again. They made it.
Yeah, I don't think
there's going to be a free version of this game.
I don't think they know what like version differences are. I think they're all arbitrary.
Well, you know, I was actually thinking about this the other day. Like, these guys come from the background of, well, Newgrounds, and Newgrounds was like the whole Flash domain. Like, you pretty much did everything. If you were doing a collaborative project, you collaborated with other users, and you pretty much just like made games for fun. Like, that's what these guys are. They're coming from this background where they just made these games because they wanted to share their content with the community. And they became like top grossing in views on Newgrounds one day, and they're just like, whoa, this is some pretty legit shit. I think I played Superfighters on Max Games way back when in 2011, and I just loved it.
I played on a French gaming website. Je PC, because English websites were blocked at school, but French weren't. So I went to French gaming websites.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, my school had no websites blocked. And then all of a sudden, like my freshman year, they had all websites blocked.
Tragic.
I realized you were playing Superfighters. So,
ooh.
Yeah.
Shut this down.
Shut it down, boys.
So, Jon Marc, the actual combat in SFD.
That's correct.
I feel like that's pretty correct.
Pretty accurate.
I think, however, grabbing tables isn't a thing. I mean, kicking tables definitely. But like, I don't know if that's realistic.
Yeah, that's
I
not
took
very
a few
realistic.
creative liberties here.
A few.
Not many though.
So how did you set up the wiki? I mean, like, how is it like actually organized?
So, really, the majority of articles on the wiki are actually about all the weapons. We do have pages about the map editor, which are basic, which is just a basic tutorial of how the layout works. We don't quite have an API page. Motto said he wanted to start working on that, so I was like, you know what, I'll open this project up to you. You can take care of this project on your own free time whenever you want to. I'll just let people know you're doing it, and then you can pick and choose who you want to get involved with.
You know, one thing I really loved about the wikis is just reading about the really tiny details. So I was wondering, right, are you going to like plan on adding like a tile wiki, like an entire section just for the tiles in the map editor?
You know what? That's actually a pretty good point. Because I think one update, I forget which one, probably was like pre-alpha 1.4 or something. Gert added separate damage values based upon which material you fell on. So like if you fell on concrete, you take a lot more falling damage.
Well, I think that should be a section for. I remember he added that, and you couldn't take fall damage from concrete. That was 1.3.
That was like the big problem. Like the damage values were kind of screwed over from the first application of the update, but then it started working again.
We need to keep in mind like old things like that. I think that should be materials though. I think I think for tiles, you should have one page with every tile in the game on it.
I was
just a
also
big
thinking
list.
of having like each gun or each item in the game having a separate history. Like for example, like a table of like updates and what they changed in each update. Like in the Magnum, I remember they increased the fire rate but lowered the damage.
We could also have like a planned items page.
That's a little more difficult to kind of go over because like the thing is, it's like what is it discussing and what could you possibly say about it? Because one thing I want to avoid is articles that are way too short on a wiki, because that's usually like A, it's a waste of space, and B, it's just if there's not enough information on something, it doesn't really deserve its own page.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking you can't make a page for every tile in the game, because there's very little you can say. You can't say anything about most tiles. You just look at them and then you're done with them.
Exactly.
This one's gray.
So what I'd probably
This one's yellowish.
I guess Terraria. Terraria has a separate wiki page for every tile in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Because every tile has an interesting property to it.
No, not all of them. Some of them are just red stained glass, blue stained glass, green stained glass. Some of them are like that.
So it feels like it takes up a lot of space, but it doesn't really go over anything.
But is that exactly bad? Is there a repercussion to adding useless pages?
No, it just takes time, and there's more important pages. It's the last thing you need to do.
You can like copy and paste, I guess.
So if you want to go over like tiles, what you might be better off doing is going over tile properties. Like, for example, if you want to go over concrete tiles, like every tile kind of shares the same material, so therefore
I don't think you should do it by properties. I think you should group it by like solid background, and then have a little blurb about each of them, like give them their material, their size, their collision box, and just have a big list on one page on the wiki. List of tiles in SFD.
Yeah, so basically that's kind of what would be going on the wiki, is just like if you have a whole bunch of tiles of either the same property or just like group it by solid tiles, material of tile, material damage, material values, etc., etc. What exactly would be going on in each of the areas? Just a broad overview of everything, kind of like having, because there's a lot of wiki categories, like in regular Wikipedia, you could look up like list of wars or list of civil conflicts, list of military branches.
List of atrocities. Here's a little trivia on Wikipedia. There's a list of atrocities, and one of the atrocities is just communism. It just says deaths caused by communism. It's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. List of deaths caused by communism. There's like a whole bunch of list pages, and basically that's what you could kind of put on the wiki. But the thing is like you'd have to have someone go through all this work, because the other thing you want to avoid on a wiki is incomplete pages or stub pages.
Yes.
So basically, if there's not enough. And the other thing is also that because this game is continually adding new content, because it's still new, it's going to be hard to keep up with that. Like, I'm pretty sure you could find some pages that haven't been updated since pre-alpha 1.7. And that was quite a while ago.
There was.
Let's see. There are a lot of weapons that still don't have images. Mines and C4 don't have images for them. Baton, chain, and knife don't have images.
How would you feel if someone had an image? Someone added an image and it was a custom skin?
Now you see, the whole thing is that this is the real reason for the wiki to exist is an information thing, and not just a community thing. So, like for example, a while ago I was like, you know what, you could open up clan pages here because it would save some space on the forums. But now that with the newer forums having BB code and you can organize it better, I was just like, you know what, you don't need clan pages here anymore. So I just removed every single clan page.
Oof.
Also, Jon Marc, thank you for that beautiful piece on grabbing. That's like actually how I feel about being grabbed in SFD. And just all of a sudden, I'm thrown off a cliff and I die, or just take a lot of damage.
It's an artistic interpretation.
That's correct.
It's a very good one too. So excellent work on that, Jon Marc.
It has meaning to it.
Grabs the butt. Is that why he's sweating, or is he sweating because he's about to be thrown off a cliff?
Multiple reasons. You can sweat for many different reasons.
It's true.
He might also be hot.
He's very hot.
The stress of fighting can also cause one to
That's true.
sweat. Just overall, probably one of the greatest pieces I've ever seen.
So what's the next segment? Are we going to talk about games?
Yeah, just gaming. Like,
well, I think I also
gaming?
want to say about the wiki first.
Okay.
Oh yeah, is there any final words, last words
Final
before we
words.
kick you off the podcast?
Come on.
I had
do
a
it.
question. Who are significant contributors to the wiki if you want to give them a shout out?
Huh. You see, that's
you want,
actually
like-
this is actually a good time to talk about that.
Really good question.
Ooh,
Bash.
Motto has done quite a bit. Ill's a troll. So.
oof, that's true.
Condemning.
Zier does a lot for the wiki. Lunatic, I'm always going to shout out Lunatic because Lunatic kind of just helps me. Lunatic kind of forces me to think about a lot of things I need to do on the wiki. For example, there was an
Unban
issue
him.
where I don't know if he's unbanned from the wiki. I sent a email and I never got a response back from him.
Dang.
Oh, here's another thing about Lunatic, by the way. He's very competitive in fighting games, so he's really precise about what he learns about. And one thing he wishes to do to Super Fighters is to make a new mode, like a mod script hybrid for Super Fighters, to like just completely overhaul it and make it completely balanced. So he understands a lot of this stuff, so he can help out C-Day.
Yeah, which is also one of the
He
really
doesn't test it.
the really appreciative things I think about as I kind of think about Lunatic, because Lunatic does contribute a lot. He also helps me like just get on top of my shit. Like we had a internal server error on the wiki, and literally nobody could access or upload files onto the wiki. So like this was an issue, so I had to talk to somebody about it. Once I got somebody's attention, they were like, "Are you still having this issue?" I said no, because when I went back to the wiki and I uploaded a file, I uploaded it successfully. And
So
always will.
anyone can be like Lunatic, though. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, that's the thing, is anyone could actually come out and say like I could literally just tell you, like if you just go to the wiki and check and see if you could do certain things, or if you could just check to see if maybe something needs editing. On navigation, you could also, the fourth option is just you can load a random page, and you just go to you could just go to any page on the wiki. Like for example, I just pulled up the article on hammer. There's the melee weapon hammer, the shortest melee weapon since pre-alpha 1.7.0. The hammer is essentially an alternative to the pipe wrench. It almost has the same power and reach, and it also spawns as commonly. And that's literally the only information on you.
Ooh.
That is it. Like you could literally just press random page, load another page, and see what's going on. Like I just loaded up Sunny City. Sunny City, they talk about a whole bunch of lore and kind of things going on in Sunny City, like the whole lore of the game.
What's your favorite lore piece?
Let's see.
Super fighters aren't human.
Probably Ricky T. Fine bamboo scaffolds.
Ricky T is pretty
Ooh.
good. I
And
think
Ricky
it's the
T,
fact. I like that
is,
super fighters aren't human. That's pretty freaky.
monsters. Let's just say that they're just.
They're
Monsters meant to fight.
monsters.
But Ricky T is it's a play on words. Rickety, which is not well made, something not well made, something easily breakable. Which most of the bamboo scaffolds are usually pretty easily breakable.
Nice.
Easily one of my favorite things in the game. But this page is very nice. Like this has been updated very recently. It has
Pop
all
quiz.
of the pop quiz.
Pop quiz. How do you spell rickety?
Rickety. Why am I?
Good. You're learning.
Wow.
I'm learning.
This is an educational podcast.
So, but
I didn't mean to
one of-
interrupt you. Go ahead.
One of the descriptions of which is just very interesting, a little tidbit is under the local corporates, Ricky T. Fine bamboo scaffolds. It says bamboo scaffolds are one of the basic elements of all the buildings in Sunny City. They are weak and catch fire easily. They break easily, which made people buy more and more, and Ricky T became very rich. Like
Deep lore.
it's like that would be like. I think
That's
it's
pretty
more like
anti-capitalist, don't you think? You gonna stand with that?
I don't know, man. I think I have to.
This is a
destroy
capitalist podcast.
This section must die.
Anyways, so that's the wiki, I guess.
It is the wiki. It's pretty much
Wow.
the wiki, at least. It's
How do you spell wiki?
it's always a work in progress. Oh my god, WIKI.
Nice.
Don't cave to his demands.
But yeah. So it's pretty much always a work in progress. It's gonna always need work. But the whole thing is I'm trying to make it as inviting of an environment as possible. encourage people to come and edit it. It's not
What's
about
the shelf
trying to
life
sue
of
anybody.
Superfighters Deluxe? When will it die?
3 seconds.
Never.
Okay, so my final thought. I'll be honest. The wiki is in a bit of a dire state. It's been like
I'm always in
years.
need of help.
It's always been
I've
like
always
this.
been.
It's been 5 years, and
It's
going
Mm-hmm.
the same.
it's still unfinished. It's very unfinished.
It's always probably going to be a work in progress. As long as
Yeah.
this game keeps adding content, this wiki will need to update constantly.
And
It's
it
also a
won't
matter of trying to keep things
roast
in
it.
format consistent.
But like one problem I've seen is that on the forums actually, I recently saw someone asking about damage values of a weapon. Something that you
Yeah.
should be able to find on the wiki.
Something you should be able to find on the wiki, but nobody really knows what the exact damage values are.
Yeah.
And this is where I can encourage people, hey, if you test this, you could take a look at it, come back to me with the damage values and I'll post them onto the wiki.
Oh, God bless.
So that way we don't have to ask those questions again. So it's a matter of trying to get people to understand that they can do this and they can actually come over and
Yeah.
you know.
That's the life of a wiki, man.
do this.
Trying to incorporate other people to add. Just
Yeah.
random visitors at least.
And
Yeah,
man,
sometimes
it is short
sometimes
for
random
management.
people come here and edit the wiki, which is, you know.
That's nice.
Very sweet.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
your goal. I think that's like your goal. People who are
Yeah,
trying to
like,
look for
just-
information, spread that
try and get
information.
try to get people to come here. Any information is good information as long as it's accurate and actually usable by people, I guess. I don't know. A
It
good
doesn't
word for
have to
that.
be usable. You can add trivia to it. Like, did you know guns used to be blue? The color palette for metal was blue.
Yeah, pretty much
Yep.
the color palette for everything was blue before there were
Yeah.
multiple colors involved in SFD.
So that was like 1.1 guns were blue, 1.2 they were gray, and then 1.3 they got really colorful.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I think in the submachine gun category, before 1.7, the Tommy gun was the original submachine. Like, that's in trivia.
Yeah.
So,
that would be some trivia.
so there's always like useful information or something interesting you could always add to the wiki just to add more reading material and more interesting discussion too. But I think the matter is just trying to get people to come over here and post that on the wiki, kind of to have people to record this information and then come onto the wiki. Like, I think the discouraging thing is it's an entirely different website, so a lot of people, it's kind of out of the way for a lot of people, so therefore a lot of people don't think about it. And I'm basically in this constant thing where, like, hey guys, check the wiki, please tell me if you think of something. Like, I looked at a page and I was like, I'm gonna go back to the example I first started with, was like, I found a page and I looked at a whole bunch of examples. I was looking through a bunch of pages, and the page on the Superfighter series was like, it was very short and it didn't really have a good synopsis of everything going on with the game. Like, you could at least talk about the style of game it is, the mechanics of it, the interesting pieces of it, the control schemes. Like, you could talk about anything in it, but there just was not a lot of information on it. So getting people to come here is kind of difficult, and getting people to kind of collect their thoughts together and then make an edit is even harder.
You know, another way of thinking of it, you don't need solid statistics to add to the wiki. You can always add
It's not
some
always
like.
about numbers.
No, yeah,
It's
you
also
can.
about strategy.
It should be. That should be like the primary objective. But you can also add like, trivia, aesthetics, how could
Or
it be
even
used in map
images.
editor. Yeah.
Even images. You could like make your own images. Like, for example, for Superfighters Deluxe, I have a custom-made image of the original Superfighters assault rifle, tilted a degree, and it's crossing with an axe from Superfighters Deluxe. It's like that's a pretty good indication that you could look at the weapons of the game. And then
Graphic design is my passion.
correct, design is my passion. But clicking on the link would basically bring you to the category of weapons, and you could look up pretty much any weapon in the category.
Okay,
And
so
then it's just a big...
audience, if you're listening to this, if you're listening to the DangerCast podcast right now, please
Right now.
add to the wiki if you can.
Anything.
Like anything will help.
Yes.
Anything, literally anything. Just try.
Even
At least
things
try.
that won't help.
Even things that won't help. Actually, no, don't do that. Like, actually try to help. Doesn't have to be completely accurate, but at least as long as we have something, we have something to work on top of. And the more
You
people to
can
add,
misspell-
the more people can fix each other's work. You know.
Yep. It's all about peer review. You don't have to make a huge page all on your own. You just start a page, get a rough concept together. Someone will eventually come and want to refine your work and make it more. Like, even I'll go over there. Like, for example, the Sunny City page wasn't really within format. I'm gonna fix the formatting up for you, because
The Wiki man himself.
yeah, I'll gladly do some grunt work if I have to.
Well,
Like, for example, during the podcast, I just edited a page.
it's that easy.
Ooh. It's that easy. It's very simple, but the whole thing is you got to get people to do it.
Right now, it's
Alright.
a one-man job.
All right. I think that's pretty much it for the wiki.
Yeah, we should probably move on.
I think we've had enough of the wiki.
The next topic we have, the next segment of this podcast, games. What have you been playing?
games.
What have you been playing this week? Anyone want to share? Like anything interesting?
I played the new
Battlefront
Zelda.
2, the original,
The good one.
the good one.
Hmm.
I played
pretty
the
good.
new. I played the new Zelda, and Sonic Adventure,
Ooh.
and Sonic Adventure DX.
That did not
Ooh.
change from last week. You've been playing the same thing.
Yep.
I didn't. I
That's
wasn't
good,
playing
Brandon.
Sonic Adventure. I wasn't playing Sonic Adventure last week. I also wasn't playing
Okay.
Zelda last week. I was playing Zelda 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
I talked about it last week. Yeah,
Hmm.
a real mix-up. Yeah, I was playing Sonic Adventure and I found a few glitches that were really useful. A bunch of clips, doing a bunch of research on it for a
I've
super
also
secret Goose Footler project. That's all I can reveal.
nice.
Thank you.
I
How
found
was
I found an old game, which I believe
Ooh.
was released in the early 2000s,
Nice.
2003, I want to say, and it's
Ooh.
called Arx Fatalis,
Ooh.
and
Is
it's
that Latin?
that is Latin.
Ooh.
I guess it means Fatal Citadel, but that doesn't really mean much in the context of the game. In any case, it takes place in this underground realm and a very maze-like structure. The most interesting mechanic is the magic system, where to cast a spell, you have to collect these runes, and then to cast components of a spell, you combine the runes. To activate a rune, you have to draw the symbol of the rune on the screen using your mouse, and then it's activated. And then activating a series of runes will allow you to cast a spell. So it's got it was a really innovative magic system for the time, and it was a bit of a risk. It's not always that easy to do because it doesn't have the best recognition software, but it's pretty good. The game overall is a pretty good experience. All the bad guys have Russian accents, and it's
Nice.
pretty good.
Ooh.
Screw communism.
That's right.
Sounds really fun.
Screw communism.
I'm pretty sure the Cold War ended in 1991. So, you know.
I think 12 years after the Cold War, they weren't fighting communists anymore.
Well, we still
Yeah.
have hard feelings.
We
So-
do.
Well, interesting that you bring up old games, because an old game I've kind of been brought back to was a city simulator from 1999, not SimCity 2000.
right?
It's called Pharaoh, and basically,
Oh,
basically you become a just any kind of important person in ancient Egypt, I guess. Like, you could be a village elder, or even the pharaoh yourself, him, herself. And basically you build a city, but you have to do you have to basically do it very obscurely. You have a very limited amount of funds. You have to not only fight off invaders, but you also have to, like, manage an economy basically run by trading.
is it similar to Children of the Nile?
Yeah, actually, that's exactly what it's based off of, except I think it's the more refined version. In fact, it's made by
Interesting.
Sierra.
Oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
If you've played Caesar, oh, thanks. If you basically played Caesar, I think it is. It's basically like that, except in ancient Egypt, or
Okay.
even similar to SimCity in a sense, but not really about, like, building residential zones. You actually have to
Right.
build actual buildings with actual production and means. The monument building's a huge thing, because basically it's like you have to amass all these materials together to build them, and it's basically challenging because you run out of storage space. You have to constantly look to try and make sure you create jobs. You have to make sure your housing's good, to make sure you get good tax revenue. There's a whole bunch of variables in it, and it's very unforgiving. like extremely unforgiving. Like if you spend too much money on something, you're in serious debt. You suddenly become very unpopular, and basically your own people invade you and destroy your city.
Even if you're the pharaoh.
Even if you're the pharaoh.
Oof.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Hmm.
So, if you think about it, it is kind of realistic in a sense, because if you're a bad pharaoh, pretty much, like, your people are going to hate you and just want to rise up against you.
But they can't, because the pharaoh has the blood of a god within.
That's correct.
Yeah, but even then, people still would, like, say,
It'll take a lot of effort, though. You have to fail really badly for it to, like, stop believing you're a god.
Yeah, basically, if you don't pay anybody, people will get mad.
Yeah.
So...
I've been playing a lot of Dirty Bomb recently. It's like
yeah, Dirty Bomb!
Yeah, it's like a different version of Team Fortress 2, where it's a little bit more realistic. Kind of like a mesh between CSGO.
Yeah, it's basically like CSGO meets TF2 meets Overwatch, I guess would be...
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, kind of like that.
Why Overwatch?
The abilities.
Yeah, abilities. Each merc has their own separate ability. So, like, each of them has a different ability.
Yeah, what's interesting about
it... They also have a revive mechanic, they have a objective efficiency mechanic, and they have, whatchamacallit, an ammo, resupplying mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
You could also have a recon mechanic, or just high damage mechanic.
Sounds like Brink.
Maybe.
Remember Brink? Brink had all of those.
Brink.
Sounds like Lawless. Everyone remember Lawless? No?
Nope.
Right,
All I know was Brink.
Well, I showed up
it's also
to...
free to play, huh?
Yeah, I showed up to CJ's stream one day. I was playing with a friend who was like global elite on CSGO. So he like was called out for hacking pretty much. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a free-to-play first-person shooter. You think people are good? Well,
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. But
And
yeah,
what is
the gameplay is pretty interesting. Unfortunately, a lot of it's like in order to get more of it, you will have to likely put some money into it. You don't have to put a lot, but you could just put whatever you feel like into it.
At least it's free. The
Yeah.
freaking
You can get everything for free, but it's just annoying because all the heroes aren't unlocked. You have to unlock them yourself.
Imagine paying $30 for Lawbreakers. Pay for
DLC.
microtransactions and DLC.
Mm.
That's why I thought it was such a cool game at first, because you had like anti-gravity zones and you had all sorts of different map elements to it. It had a lot of potential, but what ended up happening is it was like outclassed by every other game released with it.
Including
And then,
Brink.
yeah, in addition, it was also just like $30 to play. And then you also had your microtransactions and DLC on top of that. And now I think like a peak amount of like 10 people play Lawbreakers.
Yeah.
I remember this Bulgarian
It's dropped
guy,
down.
was talking about Lawbreakers one day. That was cool.
Yeah, it was just a whole bunch of bad business decisions.
How do you feel about VR?
Ooh.
Expensive.
The memes.
It is still expensive, but it's gotten quite a bit of fire recently. You know?
You know what I'm talking
What do you
about?
mean?
Ugandan
VR
locals.
VR chat, Fallout 4, LA Noire VR.
I heard Fallout 4 VR was really good, and Skyrim VR was shit.
Ooh.
Yeah, I still think some guy was complaining about how there are a whole bunch of issues with it still, like minor like immersion ruining ones with like the lighting glitches.
No, yeah, I've seen that video.
All the things in the Fallout 4 with like just like engine problems with it in VR.
Yeah, but does Fallout 4 VR have mod support yet?
That I don't know. Bethesda's probably going to get on top of that though, because they have paid mods.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure they want that income.
Paid mods are dumb. How many people even buy paid mods?
I haven't bought a single one.
I assume very few.
Have you seen Minecraft? Yeah.
I mean, unless it's like a huge, gigantic mod, which is almost like DLC level.
When does the
Right.
Minecraft update come out?
Not soon enough. I've been playing a little bit of too lately.
I'm
to
hyped
try
for the
and
Minecraft
the flow.
update.
What's going to happen in the Minecraft update?
They're changing
Cross-
every single thing about commands.
Really?
Yes, it's cross-platform multiplayer is the big one.
Oh wow. Wow, that
Yeah.
well, that is very big, actually.
Actually, that is pretty
Every
big.
version of Minecraft is going to be
Even
on
like-
every system.
Even like Pocket
Yeah.
Edition.
Yeah.
I don't know
Java
if-
Edition. I don't think Pocket Edition is to the same caliber yet.
Yeah.
They're trying to get every version of Minecraft on the same version. So like the Xbox, the PlayStation, the PC, the Wii U,
Wow.
the Switch,
That's
they're all
pretty
going to be
big.
running the same Minecraft.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that way they can get more income from Realm.
I'm trying
That's
to
really
forget.
what that's really what a lot of decisions are fueled by, is not by the amount of money you could potentially make from it. Because if you
Speaking
think
of
about
which-
it, that's how a lot of people that's how a lot of development companies make the that's how they make the game continue. That's how they continue to support the game. Because I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, even though it's about the money, that's really just about supporting the game.
Yeah, Minecraft is supported well. Speaking of completely unrelated, wasn't the new Terraria supposed to come out last year?
It
Well,
was,
yeah.
but they got delayed by
Or-
a lot. They're like on hiatus pretty much.
Yeah,
I
that's
heard it was-
rough.
I have no idea what they're
The
doing.
gameplay seems similar to Starbound.
Starbound.
Have they
Yeah.
released more content besides the one trailer?
No, not really.
No, I guess not.
I mean, they've been releasing content very slowly, but they've been doing something apparently.
I think they've been
But
doing
Red-
monthly
Red
updates.
stopped- Red stopped working on it. He's working on Terraria again to He's adding a creative mode to the original Terraria right now. I don't think it's out yet.
Oh wow.
Nice.
I think he might switch back to the new one after that. But yeah, Terraria is another Minecraft-like game.
He might be just
That's
be
very-
missing inspiration or something.
Maybe.
Maybe there's also this period of time where games just go like through this period of like
Being gay.
development hell, I guess it would be called, where it's just like, oh no.
Yeah. I think he's really losing inspiration because like Terraria itself is like the pinnacle almost. It would be really hard to top
It was
with a
kind of where he
sequel.
got his start, and I think he kind of misses it.
You can retire pretty much. You could be Notch. Just sell Terraria to
Well, you could-
Microsoft.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much. Microsoft would ruin Terraria somehow. Actually, it wouldn't, because people would just play older versions of Terraria, and it would be fine. It's got enough mod support.
Terraria's becoming a lot like Minecraft though, because it's relying on mods now, the community.
Yeah, because there's no more updates. The thing was with Minecraft was it relied on mods from the get-go. It did not have a very good vanilla game.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the mechanics of Minecraft, like current Minecraft versions, relied on mods. Like they were based off of mods for the game.
Right. Yeah. They
for-
originally
like for-
produced in mods. Yeah.
Yeah, like the tree mechanic, like the trees growing and trees generating the way they would, was actually a mod for like the initial version of Minecraft.
Huh.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, Minecraft is. I don't like vanilla Minecraft. It's embarrassing.
I used to like
pretty
vanilla
boring.
Minecraft. Just pure sentimentally
It's like-
though.
How long has it been out? Like 7 years Minecraft's been out?
Let's just not talk about Minecraft anymore. I'm trying to forget about it.
Yeah, let's
No,
forget about
but
it.
I want to say one thing. It's been 7 years, and they're just now adding a crafting recipe book.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Development
part of
priority
Minecraft is just the mystery of it, you know? Notch did a really good
Yeah,
job of adding mysteries in Minecraft, which is why I liked it.
That's true. That's a
There's
good point,
also-
actually.
Yeah, also just the element of being able to just like do whatever you want in the world. And
Yeah,
just being
exactly.
out
It's
there.
a lot of it was exploration. That's why it was fun. The main
Yeah,
reason
it's-
why
it's kind
Minecraft
of
was fun was exploring a new game, like a fresh environment that's never been seen before. That was the
Simplicity
only
was,
thing.
really
Yeah,
what it was
exactly, that
going
too.
for.
Yeah, it did do simplicity really well. Anyways, let's move on.
Yeah.
Shoutouts to Lost Planet 2. Just
Mm.
saying, love that game.
Mm-hmm.
One of the
Yeah.
best games of all time. Shoutouts. That's all.
Alright.
I don't
Yeah.
think we have anything else to say about video games.
But now,
Except for
I just have one
Game
thing.
go
Huh?
on.
go ahead.
God.
No, CJ
Um,
has to talk first.
Yeah, so my buddy Luke, who Jake knows,
I know Luke.
he recommended me a game called Age of Decadence, which is basically like a hardcore RPG, turn-based, with all these different like elements of other RPGs in it. But apparently the game is so new and so diverse that the wiki for the game is empty. Like there's no content on it whatsoever.
Ooh,
The game
that's
has a
cool.
wiki.
Even worse than SFD Wiki?
Even worse than that. Hold on, let me see. I'm gonna pull
Now's
up a
your
random-
chance.
I'm gonna pull up a random page. Let's see. Dagger. Dagger is one of the skills in Age of Decadence. The dagger has come to symbolize the assassin's trade, and for a good reason. It literally just has like a small description of it. Skill level 1. You've learned to look menacing while holding a dagger. All you need is a good scowl. 2. You've discovered that swinging your dagger wildly will only get you. 3. You've learned to hit targets most of the time if they don't move. And basically, there's just 9 levels
of flavor
of
text.
skill level, and then it just has references, and that's it. That there's nothing else about the dagger class. It doesn't talk about anything about damage value. It doesn't talk like what you could use in a dagger, how you use a dagger, what kind of fighting style it is, what kind of range you'd get from it, what kind of things you could do with it. Like, it doesn't talk about anything, the benefits and drawbacks of running a dagger. It just talks about like what the skill, how many skill levels there are, what the lines are for the skill levels, and like a short description of it, and that's it.
Okay, that's shit.
Yeah, so
is that fun though?
so-
Playing an RPG and not knowing anything? Or is
Well,
that
I
not?
feel like the element of mystery in games helps players actually stay involved with it. Whereas
I
for
don't think it
SFD,
does.
it feels like the wiki is necessary because it's a
Yeah.
competitive multiplayer game where anything you know can help you in the long run.
I can
The
accidentally
Superfighters
get into
Deluxe
it.
is not about exploring the mechanics. The mechanics
That's
are
the
laid
thing
out
with
before you.
With an RPG, it's like they don't tell you exact values, and scaling and building parties is really difficult when you don't know any of the numbers.
Yeah, well, I also didn't get the game yet. I'm still waiting to get some kind of paycheck in, so then I could just buy the game outright
Okay.
and then play it for myself. And maybe if I get back on the cast sometime, if you invite me back, I'll talk about it a little more.
Ooh, exciting.
That's kind of what I want my first game to be like that I'm working on. Kind of just full
Oh,
of
yeah, let's go
mystery.
back- let's go into
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Speaking of video games, we have on this episode of the podcast 3 video game developers who are not me.
Yeah.
That is correct.
None of them are me. We
Also,
can get a 4th on.
yeah, actually, we're gonna get a 4th.
You get Bash right now. Get him.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him right
Come
now.
on, Bash.
So,
4th is actually me. I'm becoming a game developer right now.
Nice. What's your game?
the guest from last
still
week,
6 silver tokens.
the guest from last week is gonna come over. Bash Kraken. He's also working on a game.
First ever recurring guest, Bash Kraken, on the DangerCast, if you don't
Making
count
history.
CJ.
Oh my god.
Of course.
Here
Wow.
he is.
So it's two recurring guests in one episode.
Hey, it's Bash.
Wow, it's really
There he
me.
is.
I'm here
Wow.
to talk about things on this here
Hello,
podcast.
Bash.
Hello.
We're talking about video games and making video games, which I've heard a rumor you're really good at.
Can you spell video games?
Can you spell video games?
Can you
Um,
spell video games?
Can you spell weed?
B-I-C... No, okay, I'm good. That's all I can do.
Got it. No,
Uh-oh.
that's it.
Wait,
Got 90% on the test.
Wow.
sweet. Alright, I passed. Finally.
Wow. Alright, so video game developers. Why don't you talk about developing video games?
Let's start with our project.
You should probably
Well,
start
let's-
broad, right?
I
Let's
guess-
start.
No, let's
let's
just
start with how do you start developing a video game? Where
Order,
does it
order.
begin?
Well,
Where does it
alright.
begin?
So
Right.
first, you really do need a concept. I'm pretty sure. From what I'm not the greatest developer, obviously, since I'm just starting out. I'm just learning how to do stuff, and I'm using GameMaker, which isn't necessarily the most complicated software to make games with. But
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
hey.
it's just like everybody here is a basic game developer.
Can
Like,
we
Yeah.
can we
Why?
pause? Can we pause for a sec?
Why?
I
Why
want.
it's been like 5?
Let's first talk about what our projects are. Like, what are we making?
That's fair. Yeah.
okay, yeah.
CJ.
Establish our-
Okay, so for my first project, I'm kind of working on a very ambitious one. at
First.
that. I'm basically developing my concept, and I'm working out all of my lore and my story. I'm working out
Me
all
too.
of the abilities I want and what I want to accomplish. Basically, it's an RPG where you start out as a lone boy who's just like out in the middle of nowhere, and he basically is on this adventure given to him from someone who basically travels through time and has to stop a terrible future from happening. He's
Nice.
basically sent on this quest where he has to try and vanquish the threat that kind of causes all of this.
Sounds like Baldur's Gate.
or Sonic 06, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah.
This is it pretty much just starts at the cliche of any other game, and I was thinking of having all sorts of different ways that it could end. But basically, what the main premise of my game is collecting people to help you on this quest, because a lot of RPGs, which is what this is, have a lot. You could have people join the party and they have a benefit to joining you, but it's kind of like trying to ensure that you make friends from them, trying to explore them and learn more about them. So what I'm really trying to do right now is develop characters and develop models that would be interesting for various people to explore. Kind of learning to befriend them and giving them each a different personality to make people want to learn more about them and make people want to become more with them.
So your game is really story based in that aspect.
It's going to be really story based, but I also plan on having some interesting gameplay mechanics, interesting boss fights. I was thinking of trying to rip off the active time battle of Chrono Trigger, if anyone kind of can relate to that.
Oh yeah.
So, what does this game look like, first of all?
Do you know?
I'm thinking of making extremely graphically simple. Like it's going to be.
Undertale?
What's the style?
Not terrible.
Fucker.
Like Super Mario?
Much better than Undertale.
Much better. I like
Is it
that.
top down? Is it tile based?
Top down, not tile based. It's going to be 8-directional movement.
Ooh.
A little kind of similar to the style of Earthbound, I was thinking.
That's a very fun game.
Undertale?
So yeah.
Are you sure you aren't making Undertale? Are you sure?
Am I making Undertale?
Is
Yeah, that's
fighting?
We're getting there.
Let's see.
Sounds like
Every
Undertale.
game is Undertale.
Every
Anything
game
that's
is Undertale.
anything
Yeah, but
related to
they're not
Earthbound is Undertale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Friendship? Is that an Undertale reference?
Yeah.
Holy shoot!
That's
Video
meta.
games? Is that an
Are you,
Diagonal.
are you
Talk about
determined?
Oh, are you talking about Undertale? Is there a skeleton in your game? Is that
Did someone say
Undertale?
video games?
in your RPG.
Okay, let's
There are
move on.
videos. Okay, yeah.
John
Next,
Marc.
Bash.
John Marc. Okay,
No,
Bash. Go.
Bash.
You,
Okay.
Yes.
Bash, you're next.
Go, you fucking.
Alright.
Go ahead.
So, I'm pretty sure that my game is a little bit different than other people's because what I'm focusing on is player versus player right now with my game. It's the game is Grapple Gunners. That's what it's called. It's a top-down arena shooter kind of thing versus where each person plays as a tank, and their way of getting around is a grappling hook, and they just have to shoot each other, get their health bars down, and kill the
That's
other
some
person.
cool shit right
Yeah,
there.
the gimmick is that you can't move, right? You have to use your grapple.
Yeah, you have to use your grappling hook, and it's also used to pick up weapon boxes around that you can then use. Like-
Basically, those are like ability pickups, but in order for you to use abilities, you won't be able to move. Is it turn-based?
No, it's
an action
real
game.
time.
It's gotta be
action.
fast-paced, real time. So it's a brawler with a twist, right? Is that a good?
Yeah,
way to say it?
it's kind of like it's kind of like a fighting game, and then
It's an
one
arcadey
versus
shooter
one.
game. It's like an
Yeah,
arcadey
It's a twin-
fighting game.
It's
Nice.
a twin stick shooter with one
Yeah.
stick.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's a twin stick shooter with one stick. Yeah, that's actually a really good way of describing
Nice.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool and unique. Like that's not a very it's not something that
Unoriginal.
Yeah.
yeah.
John
Unlike
Marc.
Undertale 2 we got here.
I have a very interesting idea as well.
Undertale 2.
But
John
I
Marc.
mean, my game is definitively different because you're a single player story focused game. I'm action like fighting almost even arcadey.
So let's hear about Jon Marc's game. Which game that Jon Marc made? The god of making video.
I'm currently producing Skeleton Fuckers 4.
Okay.
My favorite.
No, I still have to make 1, 2, and 3 for that to happen. So
Dang.
that's currently on hiatus.
to 1 to 3?
Mix it up. Don't pull like make the sequel and then make the prequels.
Okay, I know you're in college and you're working on several projects, right? You can just
that's
mention
correct.
some of them if you don't have like a main project you're working on right now.
Oh no, I am working on a main project right now.
Oh, okay.
So and I have I've definitely worked on smaller projects in the past. My first project was this it was actually a really big roguelike text adventure. That was fun.
I knew about that one.
That's true. The first project, I ended up working with other people on a project that I wasn't like directing. I didn't really have anything to do with the design. I was just a programmer, and I worked on generating algorithms for randomly generating maps in the city. That was really fun, but it was my first experience with Unity and C# for that matter,
Nice.
which is one of the 3 languages that you can use for Unity. It's after that I really dove into computer programming because I was essentially a novice at that point. And then I directed my own project the semester after that, or I guess a year after that.
Which was last year?
Yes, that was a game that I think it ultimately ended up being a little bit of a bust, but I learned a lot making it. which is probably the main point that you should try to get out of your first games. It was a little game called Vector, where the entire point. I guess I'll describe it as a one-dimensional adventure game. It's not really about action. It's not really an RPG. The entire point is just NPC interaction. I mean, this it had a really cool system that did work under the hood, where any action that happened, NPC would witness. He would confidentially break down what it was he just saw, as in he would understand what the subject was, what the verb was, what the object, if there was one, of the verb. So if your character picked up an apple, they would witness that action, and they would process it as, player picked up an apple. And then they would feel emotions based off of how they feel about each of those component parts. So if you stab somebody, that'll probably make them feel afraid. And then if you keep on stabbing people, ultimately you're the subject of that action of stabbing, I guess the player, would then be permanently associated with stabbing, or fear for that matter. So it had a really cool system, and that did actually work, but we didn't really have enough time to truly telegraph that to the player. So it's like, programmatically that is what's going on. But
so it worked, but it wasn't obvious that it worked.
So
yeah, but it wasn't obvious to the player, so it didn't really matter, basically.
It's kind of like emotional processing, if you think about it. Like,
right, yeah, that was
AI
the main system.
Processing based upon the context of an action.
Yeah.
What about the 3 rules of robotics? You can't do that.
I can't do that.
You can't just no. You can't.
But the current project I'm working on, I definitely scaled back the scope of the project that I'm working on. It's a top-down game. It's a mix between Hotline Miami and Getting Over It. Do you guys know about Getting Over It?
Yeah.
With Ben and
Well, more like.
Yeah.
Would you say it's like Getting Over It, or like QWOP, or
I'll Getting Over It, definitely.
or Climb Your Friends?
Or, yeah.
Mount Your Friends.
It's not really like Mount Your Friends, but it
What if it's
definitely is
Doki
like
Doki
Getting Over It.
Literature Club?
What then?
What then? I don't know what I'd do then. I'd probably can the whole project.
I would can the whole project. I would make you can the whole project.
But the basic plot and gameplay is it's set in the pseudo 17th century. It's a pseudo 30 Years War, and you're playing as a pseudo Holy Roman Empire Landsknecht, that is a pikeman.
Are you a pseudo pikeman?
You're a pseudo pikeman. No, it's a real pike. You
Ooh.
But the basic movement is you don't control your character. You control the center of gravity of the weapon. So you're basically that point of the weapon is pushed towards your cursor, and that's how you move around. And your character just kind of swings along for the ride, along with his weapon. So you try to whack your enemies and not whack your friends. And it's just going to be a simple stage-based, I guess, action game. That's kind of the.
It almost sounds like a physics puzzle game in some aspects too.
Yeah. It's definitely physics-based.
Trying to navigate around and to
But it's
action objective.
Yeah. One of the levels is just you just have to avoid cannonballs, like that's and mortars. So
That's really interesting. Your game's the only one that's featuring like advanced physics in it.
But
because it's also the
too.
fourth game.
If you're working in a system like Unity or Unreal, for that matter, physics are the. This is actually a really interesting discussion in determining which engine you're going to use, which is a very important question in development.
Well, can we leave
if
up
you
for
think,
later? Wait, can we?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking if I could share first before we have this discussion.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So my game is very interesting. It's very unique from everyone else's. It's an action RPG.
Right.
It's kind of styled after Dwarf Fortress Adventure mode in a way, because of the exploration and the detail in it. It's really like that kind of feeling behind it. The combat is a bit more like Dark Souls-y, but you can't really call it Dark Souls because the gimmick of my game.
Dwarf Fortress games.
There's a twist.
Oh no.
Twist.
You can't really call it a Dark Souls game because it's one-dimensional. The entire game is one line. That's the gameplay.
Yeah, I remember this one. That's pretty.
Yeah, so the way you can think of it, it's kind of like a two-dimensional game like Mario or Terraria, except you're flipping the screen on its side and you're looking at the very top. It's like a
So
top.
it's like super. It's like
top,
Super Paper Mario.
Yeah, it's
2D
like
to
it's like
1D.
top-down
Right.
view of a 2D game. That's kind of how you can look at it.
Dope.
Oh, okay.
But I assure you, it's action-based, and it's an RPG with like really.
I promise you.
I promise you.
You promise?
It's hard to describe because you can't really see it.
Put a
And
picture of
it's-
that tree GIF. That'll explain it.
How long
Yeah.
have you been working on it?
I've been working on it for like over a year now, actually, and I'll explain why as we
Okay.
get to the engine conversation that you want
Yeah.
to talk
So
about.
we're gonna
Yeah,
we're gonna
yeah.
talk about my game I'm making because I'm gonna spoiler alert. I have a
Shush.
game, but I doesn't count
A new
because
challenger
like
has entered the arena.
in terms of stages of development, like pre-alpha, like I don't even know what the gameplay is. I haven't
Right.
gone that far, but I've been doing an obscene amount of world building and plot. Like I've got the plot largely laid out. I've got the main characters. I've got the world all set out. I've got the main events that are going to occur, but I have no idea of what the combat or gameplay of the game is going to be. I know what it's not going to be, but I have no idea what it is. So I can't say I'm anywhere close to developing a game. I just have a plot. And it's
Oh.
going to be a sick plot.
Some themes behind my game. I'm not really a fan of story-driven games. What
Ooh,
I really
am,
want
right?
to do, what I really want to do in this game, is to have a completely player-driven story. So the story doesn't drive the player drives the story, and it feels coherent. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that's part
And
one of game development.
Another thing is that there's no tutorial in the game, or a wiki. You're supposed to figure everything out yourself by looking at the mechanics, by using the mechanics.
So what are you gonna do when someone does make a wiki?
No wiki,
Uh-oh.
I'm out.
You can delete
Well, I
it.
mean, I'm not gonna delete
Are you
it,
gonna-
but like, at least
No,
someone
I
has to
mean,
explore it, you know?
I think that's very fun. I mean, 'cause,
DMCA.
like Dark Souls, like when Dark Souls first came out, which I didn't play it when it first came out, so I wasn't really involved at all when it first came out.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I know. But one of the best things about it that I've heard described by many people is kind of the group effort that it took to figure out the game. Basically, everybody amalgamating all the information they had gathered from their individual playthroughs and putting it together to help others.
Yeah,
So in a sense, it was actually like a massive, cooperative effort.
I'm actually okay with that. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
a lot better than just.
That was a mechanic in the game where you can leave messages behind for other players to
Right?
read.
Yeah. The gameplay
Beware of
encouraged
Drake.
it.
They can be misleading though sometimes.
That's true.
Yep. Jump
Some
here.
illusory walls behind.
Yeah.
I'll just spend like
Beware.
5 minutes looking for illusionary wall after that.
So should we take turns sharing some of the lessons that we've learned?
Well,
You
yeah,
first,
it's
because you want to
next
talk
part.
about engines, right, Jon Marc?
yeah.
okay, we're gonna
yeah,
talk
I guess
about
that's something
engines
to say.
first. Before
Yeah,
lessons,
I
we'll
guess-
talk about engines.
Yeah, I'll just keep it short about engines. But
Wait. I think engine is a lesson. Like lesson one, what engine are you going to use? Know your
Right,
engine.
yeah. Well, obviously there are a lot of engines out there. You could also just decide
Well,
to
Okay,
make
wait.
it straight out of.
What is an
Euro.
engine? What is an engine?
Make it straight out of command prop.
Okay, so a game. Yeah, you could. Right. Yeah, you could just
I've done
code it
batch
in
files
assembly. Go
before.
ahead.
Wait. Why? You're going too far ahead. Or
Wasn't Zoo
Ross, you're
Tycoon? Wait a
going too
second, really quick.
What?
Wasn't Zoo Tycoon made in assembly?
far- Probably.
Who knows?
Don't know.
Guys,
Probably.
I'm
what?
pretty sure it was.
Let's step back. What is a video game?
Oh gosh,
No, not that far. Not that far.
I,
Not
I,
that far.
Actually,
that's too
I
far.
thought about this a lot, Jay. We
Oh, no!
Let's not. No, John, please.
That's
What
not
does-
Game dev, not video game
ATM
talk.
from an arcade machine, except that the ATM wasn't made to be fun.
Okay, so wait. Game development, not game philosophy, right now. Anyway.
Okay.
That's true. Game development. Yeah, let's keep it.
I want to hear your thoughts on engines, like what you would
Right.
choose, and what is an engine as well.
Right. So I
Well,
guess.
engines are very tricky. So it's kind of
Yeah. Go ahead. If you have a good definition, go ahead.
well, an engine can both enable you and restrict you. If you think about it this way, because an engine can provide you with enough resources to make a great game, but you're also limited by that engine, because you can't incorporate more than 2 engines into a game, otherwise it just becomes like code conflicts and everything just kind of goes awry. And it's also hard for you to transfer engines over from one project to the other, because the code's different, the libraries are different, and everything.
Once you
pretty
pick an engine, you're stuck with it pretty
Yeah.
much.
For
Yeah.
the most part, yeah.
So basically,
So-
it basically comes down to, will I stick with this engine? Will it give me what I need to do to develop it?
Right. So,
So
a
what
good
an
way to
engine
think about an engine is just a toolkit
Like a,
to help you
Mhm.
make a game.
Yeah.
That's
I was
Doesn't
thinking
feature
like
every tool you need.
yeah. I was thinking it's like a programming environment, but it's where the game takes place. So what tools are enabled in that?
Well,
engine?
most
Here, I have a
engines
way.
come with their own coding environment that you can.
I can
use,
define it
so.
sort of. So
Go
there's
ahead.
basic Java, right, where you just like program if statements and stuff and make your own classes. But then there's an engine that does all of that background stuff for you, so you don't have to do it again because it's already done for you. Like you can make like
Yeah.
objects for things that people have already made. Like you can already use like a template for a game instead of making one yourself. That's an engine. That's a template. It's a tool.
The thing with an engine too is if it doesn't have a thing, it's rough, isn't it? If the engine doesn't have what you want it to have.
Yeah, so in my case, the reason why my game has taken over a year to even like get past its first starting stages is because I didn't use an engine. I started using Java like completely new to it, not really understanding how it works.
Prompt.
And I was kind of like led into thinking that I just need to make classes, so I did. I made a bunch of classes and that took a really long time. Since I
Is
was
that SFD that did that to you?
I don't know, but I was just doing whatever I thought was right. I
Why
didn't really
did-
know
why
much
did-
about
why did you
libraries or
think-
engines.
Yeah. Why did you think I just need to use classes? This is what I gotta do.
Well, because I don't really know anything about libraries, really. I'm all self-taught, so I don't really know anything about Unity, I don't know anything about engines. I just kind of did everything
Do you even know
myself.
what a video game is?
Nope,
Well,
I'm just making one.
Ross, the question is, do you do a lot of script editing in SFD?
Yeah, I do.
That's basically what a library is.
Yeah, I know what a library is. I just never
But the whole
really
thing
used
is
them.
like, yeah, for
do
a
you
lot of
spell
engines,
library?
libraries are extremely. Oh my god.
Okay,
But
so
for the audience, what is a library?
my mentality was extremely
They're books.
individual. Like I was only focused on myself. Like I wasn't really
You're like a
thinking.
video game hipster.
I guess so. Sure, why not? You could think of it that way. But like that, it was like it was an evolution of myself, I guess. I like
It was
came
a
from
bad
if
idea.
statements,
Yeah.
then went to classes, then it went to like really in-depth mechanics, and just kind of spiraled out. I made myself my own engine that I understand
Yeah,
perfectly.
you made your own library, dude. Congrats.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
And then you
But
switched to
that's
Game Maker and lost
That's
it
a
all.
lot of the
Oh wow.
That's the premise of libraries. Is libraries use code made by other people that they feel is more efficient. So a lot of people who make their own libraries are more proficient in it, and therefore function faster. But a lot of game engines require you to have to learn libraries, and you literally have to go through each and every single piece of code, each get and set statement, a whole bunch of a cacophony of literal everything that you need to do. Because someone who doesn't know how to use their own tool is essentially lost.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
more often than not, the engine choice will not give you tools, but if you know how to use those tools, you can make the tools you need.
Game Maker is an engine that's really nice for that kind of stuff because it doesn't really make you read through all the libraries. It just gives you like a really simplified way of looking at it because it gives you like these block statements, right? And also some script editing if you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would mention really quick. If you're thinking of using game, well, okay, I guess it's just a short statement, but in my opinion, Construct 2 or 3 are both better than Game Maker because it's essentially the same program, but just more efficient and more updated for the time.
Is it easier or harder to use than Game Maker?
I think it's the same difficulty curve to learn.
Okay.
I think what basically happens is at the same time you could feel restricted an engine that enables all these tools because you feel like it's not efficient enough, or you feel like you could do more you could make more mechanics. You could more tailor a game like this. Like one of those things in Undertale, you could tell it was a Game Maker game,
Mm-hmm.
but you could tell it was kind of
Yep.
limited mechanically by a lot of things. Like it could have been a lot more dynamic and a lot more fluid. It could have had a lot more interesting elements in it that didn't make it seem like just a cheap Game Maker game.
When is it the right decision to use RPG Maker?
Oh.
Never.
Yeah, no.
When you have
For a
no,
hobby.
because okay, here's the thing. There's this really good game on Steam called
Yeah.
Yume Nikki, and
Oh,
it's made
yeah.
in RPG Maker, and there is no
Really?
combat.
You
You
said it was
walk
made
around
in
in that
RPG
game.
Maker.
Yeah. And
If it's
the
a
thing with
walking
Yume-
simulator, yeah.
Yeah, Yume Nikki's a walking simulator, and it's really good. Because also hentai. If you just stuff your game with hentai,
Well, okay.
Nice.
just saying.
Wow.
I am educated. That's the two times you use RPG Maker: walking simulators and hentai.
RPG Maker is good for writers who aren't good at coding. How about that?
That's
true,
true.
you know.
But
I'd
that's
say
it's
so.
also bad because a lot of RPG makers come out the same.
It's also kind of like the same with like Python and visual novels.
That's because the people don't make it their own. Like they take these bases like RPG Maker, but they don't add on to it as much as they should to make it. Not just the engine, not just.
Yeah, like that's the whole thing. Is like a lot of I could even go as far as saying a lot of dating sim visual novels are the same exact way. Like they have interesting stories and interesting gameplay, but because the coding is so simple, a lot of people. It means you could add more to the game. It means you could make more game, make it interesting, make it something that involves the player more, but they don't take that extra mile often, and it makes the gameplay lackluster.
Even Game Maker has that problem sometimes. Some Game Maker games will just feel really bad. Like
kind of coming back to like this whole thing. Like your engine choice can both give you the ability to create, but it could also hold you back from.
The thing with Game Maker is that I don't think it's actually that restrictive in that aspect, because there are games like, let me think here, Hyper Light Drifter that have pushed the engine. Nuclear Throne, I guess, is another pretty good example where they've pushed the engine as far as they want it to go, and they've really made it their own thing rather than just a 2D Game Maker game where you walk up, down, left, and right.
Yeah, some games push it far.
I think one of the let's see, I guess some good advice in which engine you want to pick is, first of all, learn about. I think it's generally helpful just to learn about every engine if you can.
Every engine that's relevant, or just
every engine that's relevant. So I would probably say the Construct series, Game Maker, Unity, Unreal.
And also something like, if you're making a 2D game, you don't need to learn Unity or Unreal Engine. You can just bypass those if you know you're making a 2D game.
Well, one of the problems that I ran into is one of the previous projects I worked on, Vector, the one that kind of ended up being a bust, is I made that in Unity. Now, one of the big problems was that the game idea that I had was almost entirely based in programming. It was almost entirely based in the code. Most of what was going on in the game was happening in the code, which so any engine that you use, I'm of the opinion that you can pretty much do anything with any engine. It's just harder, based off which engine you pick.
Wow.
But the game engine that I used, Unity. I wouldn't recommend, this is just a specific example, but I wouldn't recommend using Unity unless you fully intend to maximize the utility of Unity's provided assets. Namely the physics engine, the graphical and animation capabilities that it has. Because the game that I was making didn't really utilize any of that stuff.
Because it was one-dimensional. There's no physics.
There was no physics. Basically, I didn't really use anything like any of the powerful tools that Unity had to offer. I just decided to use Unity, but I could have used any other engine that maybe is better suited for games that are more based in code and less based on physics and less based on the more powerful assets that Unity has available.
Is knowing what tools you have at your disposal. Understanding that you won't be limited by any of the tools, understanding the libraries, and also being able to maximize what you can use in the
tools.
engine.
Yeah, that was my next question, Jon Marc. Did you then learn after that game did you do more research into engines when you made Great Man Theory?
Well, yeah, but then I decided to go with Unity because it has a good physics engine, a very nice 2D physics engine.
And so my question, okay, so that's good. And
all right. The name of the project that I'm working on, by the way, is called the Great Man Theory.
My question to everyone else is: have you found you're running into troubles with your engines, or like Ross's example of he ran into troubles with not using an engine? Have you guys been finding now that you start working on your game that these engines aren't working out?
Yeah.
And
so I was
CJ,
thinking,
have you even picked an engine?
I'm suffering.
Yes and no.
Oof.
I figured maybe it would be a good idea to develop, and it allows me to just better utilize the movement system. Like it seems like it's a much more smooth engine.
Unity?
Like what I could possibly do in Game Maker, because my experience with Game Maker is like on and off.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not.
Unico?
Well, in my experience with Game Maker, I haven't run into any problems, but that's just because of the structure of my game. It's literally just a 2D top-down versus shooter, so the physics in that are pretty baked in some ways. So, because I don't know, bouncing off of walls, collision with other players.
They're simple equations.
Yeah, basically, they're very, very simple equations that, Game Maker is really good at doing, actually. But it really does depend like on the complexity of what you're trying to do. GameMaker is really good for simple stuff like that.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
also
I was thinking-
OpenGL, which was used to make Minecraft. And there's Monogame, which is a pretty good game engine for C#. That's just like
Yeah,
it's
also,
basically
isn't
yeah.
Monogame- Yeah, isn't Monogame also an excellent way to just port games to other platforms?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. It's got other capabilities besides game making, but it is a really good. It's a good system. I've only minimally used it, but I did learn a good deal about it. So.
The thing about programming
Shout
my
out
own
to Mono
engine is that
Gamer.
I'm afraid it might become way too complicated for me to just start from scratch.
So
And I feel like there are other systems that
You can just build off other systems.
from my
Mhm.
personal experience of making a personal game engine, a lot of my time working on it has just been staring at my screen, trying to debug everything with my mind. Because the thing is that everything is actually working really simply. The entire game thing is, the entire engine is very simple to look at. The problem is like you have to figure out the logic behind it, because it can get kind of complex sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest pitfalls with coding. Is so with if you're making like a physics-based game, the most valuable thing is that you can actively test and play a physics-based game, because the physics engine's already figured out. You're not going to run into debugging errors.
Ooh.
But if you're coding, then it's not going to compile if there are errors. So
Yeah.
you cannot actively test unless you design it in such a way that you've allowed yourself to be able to compile it and run it, and confidentially add stuff to it. But that's probably not the case, especially if it's your first game.
Yeah, so my question is,
But that's
in
one of the biggest
Vector,
pitfalls.
Did you run into that in Vector, that
Absolutely.
everything was logic-based, so it was just code wasn't compiling?
Yeah, Another problem is that if it does compile, there still might be latent errors that are not they're not apparent.
They're
when
not
you first
visible
run the
because you
code.
can't actually see when things happen in the game.
Because it's all happening in the code. Unless you're okay with spending hours just visually scanning your code.
That's what I do.
Which some people are. I do that.
I've had to do that.
I'm very patient. I'm very patient, so I actually don't mind that
I don't
much.
make video games,
yeah,
but I've done
yeah.
coding, and I've had to do that. I've had to do that in general coding.
If you're going to be doing the coding for your game, you have to be patient. That's the.
Yes.
Yeah, I also think sometimes it's also great. Like if you can't figure something out, it's just better to step away from it and
Yeah.
just like take a breather if you can't. Like if you don't have that patience, like you can't force yourself to be patient, keep working on, because sometimes that just doesn't work for you.
But you have to get a new perspective, fresh perspective.
Yeah, and basically what can help with that is just like if you calm down, just like take a moment to get away from it, just kind of like chill out for a while, maybe do something else that you've been need to do or you've been wanting to do.
It's also pretty valuable just to ask yourself whether or not you need this mechanic or not.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
If you feel like it's going to get in the way of something you do, or if you feel like you don't need to spend that much time on it, or maybe just a different approach.
You can do
altogether.
it better. You can do it a
Yeah.
simpler way.
Yeah. A simpler way, or just something different. It's okay to be different. It's okay if it doesn't conform perfectly to your original conception of the game.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one thing. The concept for your game can evolve as you go, and it can actually be better than what you originally thought.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's very
Definitely.
inspiring. All right.
Like, as I've been working on grapple gunners, I originally thought, okay, I'm just gonna have two tanks, and they're gonna shoot at each other, and that's gonna be it. It's gonna be this really simple game. But as I started continuing, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make weapons. I realized that I may need something else to make it a more balanced experience. And then, shields. One of my friends said, hey, maybe you should put a shield in the game. And then, after that, I realized that I need to build other systems around that. And it just exploded from there and became its own thing. But it became better.
Right.
Expanding the concept.
My question, here's another question. How does oh frick, I lost it. I think it was something about optimization. Have you guys run into optimization errors yet, like memory leaks or the code is slow because it's just very inefficient? Have you guys run into issues about that yet?
All the time.
I did actually.
I suffer. It happens all the time.
Memory leaks
Only
or
once I
inefficient
did.
All
coding?
of the above. All of the above.
Oof. What was your case, Jon Marc?
It was not the first project. Actually, yeah, the first. Multiple times I've run into that. Well, yeah. I mean, even in the original text adventure, I realized that I just used recursion a few too many times. And
So, did you have infinite loops that just destroyed the game somehow?
it didn't create infinite loops, but it created loops that didn't ended up basically loops that ended up piling onto each other. Like basically, it would run recursion, but then it would still have more functions to run in the same function that was recursing. So it would basically just pile on more and more stuff to do. It was just stupid code design that I just didn't know because it was my first project.
So basically what would happen is he'd be piling a whole bunch of... He'd be running one loop, but that loop wouldn't solve the right thing. So then what happened was the function would keep calling over and over and over again. And then basically it would be compiling more and more and more on when it didn't really need to do that.
Yeah, so I didn't understand exactly why a text adventure was lagging, but
an example I had of really bad memory leakage was probably in just a CSC class. I don't have a lot of programming experience with my game because I'm still just developing the story, because for story-based games, that's really what you're doing. You're just trying to refine the story,
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And also just like trying to figure out what kind of mechanics you want, laying out the mechanics, seeing how they really, and then once I have that general idea of what I want,
and laying out the world.
Yes, also laying out the world.
World is huge.
Yeah, in an RPG game, that's kind of like really what you're doing for most of it, and then when you code it, it's just a matter of setting properties to everything, and then just moving it then and there about, setting collision entities and everything, and.
So here's my next question.
I've actually got a pretty good design / development question.
Yeah, you go first. I'll go second.
I guess in general, do you prefer to, procedurally generate stuff or handcraft things? Like, what in general do you prefer?
All right, so, you see, there's benefits and drawbacks to both. I'd say the benefits to procedural generation would be everything generates quickly, and if you have a good grasp on coding and you know how you can lay that out, procedural generation can work very well, and it reduces a lot of time that's needed to develop it. However, what kind of happens with procedural generation is like a lot of it kind of becomes dependent on randomness, like, or also you don't have the same feeling as something handcrafted, like this is meant to be here. Like
it's not guaranteed to be good.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't have the handmade feeling, and it kind of loses the what would be the good term for creativity of the game? I don't know, but it kind of loses the passion aspect. Like, oh, this guy just threw together a bunch of lines of code and just said generate the world.
Well, there is kind of an in-between with that as well, where you can build specific pieces and then add them together in a procedural generator.
That's generally the best method.
Yeah, like handcrafting, like half and half. Like you handcraft certain parts of it and you make it, like, seem like this is like something the person really wanted to put a lot of effort into.
Like Isaac does that, or Rogue Legacy, or Spelunky in some ways.
Generally the best examples of procedural generation do it in a modular fashion, where it doesn't generate everything randomly down to down to the pixel. It's not that.
I've always been a fan of the handcrafted style, though, because the background I come from with a lot of RPGs is like Final Fantasy or Secret.
They're handcrafted.
Yeah, and they're all handcrafted. Like every single Final Fantasy has been handcrafted since like 1987.
But they still managed to fit loads of content into it. Like
exactly. And it's even the same with Breath of the Wild too. The Zelda games, each of one of them was handcrafted, and like the amount of immense passion they put into this and the reasoning behind each of these areas, like the way they designed it, they made it interesting. They made it, and you could get the same kind of thing from procedural generation. I definitely think you can, because The Binding of Isaac did it pretty well. Because
Gungeon did it.
Gungeon did it pretty well too. But I think the whole thing is like you come from this. What like my expectation of an RPG is you have to handcraft as much as humanly possible, because this kind of it immerses players more if you do it.
And story. It's hard to build a story or narrative around a procedurally generated game.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That's one thing I've actually yet to see is a procedurally generated story-driven game that actually is cohesive.
That's what I'm doing right now. That's my dream.
Rogue Legacy did that. Rogue Legacy did it first, Buster.
I wouldn't call that really story-driven, though. I would call that like a side story.
The story is really well written, I guess, but yeah, it doesn't drive it. Dwarf Fortress? I don't think so. I think Dwarf Fortress also is a side project.
Dwarf Fortress isn't really.
That's really player-driven there. The story that you create, right?
Yeah,
you're just going around doing things.
No, in my game, what I'm planning to have is a world that's handcrafted. Like the entire world is very basic to look at. What's randomly generated in it are the structures. Because since there's no width, you can't really walk around a building. But what I can do is have there be random encounters with structures, like buildings. And maybe you can like walk away from them or go inside. Stuff like that. And
that's a big thing to discuss in game development too, is RNG.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting to that though, because we have to get through this question.
Once we're done with procedural, because that's kind of like the segue to RNG.
The idea for a procedurally generated story is to have some sort of conflict, and then a way to resolve that conflict. But the way you make a really immersed story is by kind of making the conflict a bit more mysterious and a bit more drowned out, so you don't really know what it is exactly at first. So it's not like a straight up answer to it, you know? There has to be multiple answers, multiple interpretations from the player. Maybe ways to like go around it.
Right.
And the way I want it to be procedurally generated is by having basic templates for conflicts, and then having like types of those conflicts, and then somehow have sort of clues that lead to like an overlaying quest.
I think because I'm looking at Age of Decadence, a majority of the way you handle issues right now seems to kind of look like it's randomly generated issues. Like, for example, a lot of conflict is randomly generated, and I'm pretty sure that's why it's mostly empty, because there's just not enough data to really conclude anything decisive on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just, maybe this is one of those games where it's just like it randomly generates conflicts. It kind of has this random element to it that makes it it could make it an interesting story-driven game.
So we're segueing into RNG right now. Then we're not going to talk about
RNG.
So let's talk about that random number generator.
I think a lot of people have to be careful with RNG.
Mm-hmm.
I think overusing RNG too much can kind of get frustrating for people.
SFD.
And I think, I even go into the area of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, right? Which is just oh my god.
Yeah. It's annoying when a game
is basically RNG.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some games do it right though. Like Mario Party is RNG, but people love that game.
Well, that's because it is a party game and it's not really competitive in an aspect. So everybody's just like, "Ooh, I lost all my points."
I really appreciate it when games kind of run with RNG. I guess
it's all or nothing.
That's
Either
true.
all RNG or not RNG.
I hadn't thought of Mario Party, but that's actually really true. But there's one game. It's I don't know if I can remember it. I think it's called Realms of Alonia. I don't know if that's quite the name. It's one of those little it's a top-down roguelike tile-based game. But it basically takes to heart that principle of RNG and just goes crazy with it, and it goes absolutely insane. Like, you know, you can pickpocket trees, you can just get hit by a meteor, just randomly. You know, the entire point is that it's going to tell a crazy story every single playthrough, and like random things are going to happen. You know, so it's entirely RNG, but that's the point of the game. Like, you know, that is the central mechanic, that random things are going to happen. So I think it's pretty cool.
I think an element of randomness is almost necessary in a lot of games. Like,
but sometimes it's not. I think
it gets
but it's
frustrating. I think it's very frustrating in a competitive game or a multiplayer game where a mechanic is based on RNG.
Yeah,
because you could have games like I had a game of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is basically just like RNG King. Because you could either have games where everybody gets a level 3 helmet or everybody gets a motorcycle helmet. Yeah. And then it's just like headshot central. Whoever has a sniper basically wins that game.
Yeah.
Or you could have a game where everybody has a sniper, but it ends up like the game ends up in a fucking town. So you're pretty much just left with, all right, whoever has the fast firing SMG in their pocket wins.
It really does depend on how you implement RNG, because it can actually be balanced in some ways if you think about it. If you give everybody a random weapon, but then make sure that each weapon is balanced like relative to the other, then everything's fine. But if you make it that way,
you also get things, because competitive gaming is becoming a much bigger thing now. Like, it's becoming huge, and there are a lot of games out there that don't have RNG. Esports ready. But in competitive games, a lot of people like to get competitive. It's usually frustrating to see like a lot of it becoming just random number generated. It's just because a majority of the frustrations come from if you don't feel like your skill should win? Why should luck win you the game?
Mm-hmm.
Why does luck define your placement in a game? Why isn't it skill?
That's where SFD fails, in my opinion, because
that is where SFD fails.
Yeah, it has this pretty solid core where it's very competitive, obviously, because you're fighting to kill each other. But then there are these random little things that can happen to you just to either boost you way up, like finding a health pack or something, or just knock you all the way down, literally getting knocked down by a 10% chance or something like that.
And there's no way of controlling that as a problem. Like Smash Bros has that randomness, but you can control it. You can turn off all the randomness if you really want to. But SFD you cannot. You are stuck with it.
I think a pretty good example, Bash, you mentioned earlier, like sometimes randomness can be balanced. I actually think, I mean, despite what a lot of people say, I think the Civ games do a pretty good job of that.
So what games?
Civilization. Never played one myself.
Oh. Yeah, the thing is though, they have a lot of really heavy logic and algorithms to balance the randomness.
Yeah,
they're very complex games.
Yeah,
to their core, they're very complex.
Yeah,
like everything about them is just an extremely complex environment. Like anything could happen from a Civ game.
So in that case, the RNG is really integrated into the systems in it. So it's not really a tacked on thing. So it's inherent within the game design itself.
Yeah, like in a lot of games, like the element of randomness is always something that makes gameplay interesting because it's something you can't expect. So I feel like every game, in some sense, has a small amount of randomness to it.
Ultimately, what CCG games try to do, but
it's true.
Let's talk about balancing, maybe. What about that?
No,
balancing?
No, I had a question.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He's been holding on to it for a long time.
Sure. A whole 2 questions ago. It was 2. I guess mostly CJ would have to answer this, but you guys can try if you want. It was like a story-driven game needs a story, and a story needs a meaning. And do you think that's like very difficult to incorporate? Like, do you want to build basic game? It's just odd. I think a story-based game needs to incorporate a story of some kind, but other games don't. I'm wondering, CJ, do you have trouble, or even like Ross, do you have trouble incorporating a meaning to your story? Do you think it's important to have meaning to your story?
You mean like an underlying theme? Is that what you're trying to say?
It seems like that's what he's saying.
It's essential to actually have a meaning to a story, in my opinion.
You can't just tell nothing.
Exactly. It's not just like there's always a moral to some kind of story. Like even in comic books, like this is where kind of a lot of my culture comes in here, where like in comic books, like every hero had their flaws, but each of their stories talks about something they've learned or something they've had to overcome. It wasn't just about being the bad guy, it was about beating the conflict within themselves and kind of learning from that. Every story needs to have some kind of lesson, because that's what makes stories interesting. Conflict makes stories interesting.
Without that, they're just kind of empty and flat. It's just like,
and it feels like
generic.
there's nothing to have been learned at all.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to convey with my story. I don't know what my message really is. Like, the goal of the story is to describe the world. So as you progress through the story, you experience more of the world, and it really immerses you. And it's the story that immerses you into the world. And that's
what I always recommend doing, Jake, and this is just from like a personal experience perspective. I always recommend like reading all kinds of story books, kind of like looking at all kinds of any kind of like medium of literature, or even movies, like whatever you're into. Just like looking at it and thinking about what they have to talk about and what you can kind of learn from.
Okay.
Because then it kind of helps you with structuring your own stories, and therefore it enables you to kind of make these characters the way that they can be. Kind of find the inner possibilities of characters and what your story could potentially become. Not to rip off a story, but just to like understand story structure.
See what they did right.
Yeah, and also see what you could possibly do and what you think you could teach people from even life experience.
So Ross, have you thought about this all in your game? Like,
yes,
because you were trying to have a story.
Okay, so in my opinion, in stories, you don't need a particular theme. A theme is kind of optional in a way. What I do think in my game, what conveys interest specifically is depth. The more depth you add on, the more things to think about, the more you're more involved in it, I guess.
That's another
your
big
game
thing
made it
too.
sound like, I think your game sounds a lot like it's a mystery thing. Like the big thing is depth and mystery. You want to solve the mystery.
But there is a theme. There's a mysterious theme behind it, and it's like a thing around life and stuff.
I think theme more along comes around from like how you tell the story kind of do with the player.
Yeah,
to
I
get them
don't.
to
I
kind
don't
of-
know if you want to start with a theme or the theme just develops naturally.
The theme
The
develops.
theme develops. It has to
The
develop.
theme develops from the environment.
You can't know exactly what the theme is right away. That's kind of
Yeah,
broken.
and basically, a player has to determine the theme for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interpretation.
And so,
Yeah, see, the thing
Ross,
is,
just-
if you add more depth to a story, the player is capable of interpreting more from it. What makes Dark
Yeah.
Souls, for example, a really good game is that it doesn't tell you what it's about. It just gives you, like,
It's
item
ambiguous.
descriptions. It just gives you,
Yeah.
like, different occurrences and stuff.
little tidbits.
Exactly.
One problem with that though is if you add too much depth, it might become overwhelming and autistic. Like you get
No.
Warhammer that has like 100 books describing the parts of the lore, and that just becomes.
Oh,
Really
that's a bad
overwhelming
way of
to a
displaying
player.
depth, though. That's a really bad way of displaying depth.
Yeah.
In my opinion, depth should be
It-
described more like as hints. Like hints towards
Subtly.
what subtle meanings are the greater thing.
Letting a player have to go
And
into
consistency.
the story and letting a player go
Consistency.
into the story and try and experience that is what
Consistency is the
creates
most important
depth.
part.
Exactly.
Having to, it's all about showing, not telling.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's the common story. That's the common thing that any writer will tell you.
Hey Bash, is your game gonna have a story?
Well,
lore
right
of
now,
Grapple Gunners.
The lore.
Grapple Gunners. The lore, oh boy.
It's the lore.
I have some ideas about it, but it's not really central to the gameplay right now. But after I
yeah.
develop the versus component, I might.
Or it could just be for you know.
You have unironic ideas for lore for grapple guns.
I do have unironic ideas for lore,
Sick.
but
Can you hint? Can you give us a spoiler?
I don't know, like gladiators, something like that.
Gladiators.
I like that. Nice,
Okay,
nice,
okay,
nice.
nice.
To start.
Okay,
Without
but
legs. Gladiators with no legs.
gladiators no legs, so they get inside floaty tanks and shoot at each other because they're angry about life.
They're like,
Okay.
They're like a bunch of Hulks. I would send it to a different planet.
But when I do end up, okay, because what I'm doing right now is I'm making the versus component. But at some point when I finish that, I do want to make a single player, you know, like kind of
Campaign, that
arcadey,
could
like
be
Metal
interesting.
Slug kind of thing, you know.
Oh yeah, or like you know,
Metal
like
Slug or Street Fighter?
like a
Well,
shooter.
I mean, kind of like Metal Slug in the aspect that you're like going through levels and then you fight bosses and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Because the framework that I have is really lenient. Like you can go anywhere with it basically. Because literally all you have is a tank with a grappling hook and a bunch of different weapons that you can use. So you can put that in any setting and it can work almost.
Okay,
Do you have
so
camera scrolling?
And I
I do
fucking
have
love
that.
Metal Slug.
yeah, that's an
I love
recent
Metal
update.
Slug too.
Okay, Ross, you
So-
were saying?
We're a bit low on time.
Bash wants to talk about bouncing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
balancing. So what I
Why-
was thinking. So what is balancing? Balance is like consistency in your game. It's like the idea that
I think it's
things-
fairness.
fairness.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, see,
the
that's the
player.
thing though. How do you achieve fairness? It's by having consistency. If your player is aware of the consistency in your game, that's how it
Oh,
becomes
yeah.
fair.
It's a thing, because like in Halo 1, the bouncing was every weapon is broken. They're all
Yeah.
stupid
Mhm.
overpowered.
So I have a
That was how they
really,
found it.
really interesting system how levels are going to work, like how power is going to work. There is three things. There's your inheritance, like your species, I guess. There's your skill level, like how long you've been alive and how much you've trained your own body, like what level you are of human, I guess. Human would be like a different level of creature, but then you can be a different level of human. Like, you know, a level 2 human would be the value of 2 level 1 humans. And then there's also spirit power. Spirit power is something like statistical. It's literally just
Autistic.
how you play. It's your AI. It's your intelligence of like controlling your player. Because you know it's a skill-based game, so the spirit
Yeah.
power would be like your mastery rank, I guess.
Oh, okay.
One concept in my game is that you're going to be able to level up your mastery rank, quote unquote, which is called spirit level, by doing missions or like advancing yourself before dying once. It's gonna be like a roguelike until you die once. After that, you can't really rank up your spirit. And what spirit tells
Okay.
other people is that you're able of playing the game well, I guess.
So how's that factor into the actual balancing of the game then?
So the balancing comes in where the player's level doesn't. Well, the creature's level isn't the only thing that determines what will win. It's also the spirit level, like who's more skilled, and also its species. For example, a goblin who's level 10 might not win against a human who's level 5, because the goblins are just generally weaker.
That's racist.
Yeah.
That is racist.
Yeah, racism is a part of this game. It's actually a crucial
Race
thing.
realism.
Race
Like
This is
a
real.
level
This is
1
Believe in
dragon.
race realism, Ross?
A level 1 dragon would probably be stronger than like a level 50 human or something like that.
Okay, so there's different scaling for different.
Yeah, there's just a
creatures and stuff.
really different kind of scaling.
Yeah, and so
Alright.
usually the more complicated you make these systems, the more you kind of have to go over this consistencies and just figure out the
Exactly.
balance.
Yeah.
That's where balancing comes
'Cause-
in.
Because you don't want one thing to be inconsistent. That just throws the whole thing off. You just have this this one sword that kills everything in one hit. You made a big mistake there.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Even in a lot of RPGs, there's a lot of balancing required. So, for
I've
example,
seen
like
it.
if you have like a dungeon where it's like a low-level dungeon, right? And
Mhm.
Xenoblade Chronicles does a terrible job of this because, like, there were points in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 where you would be in like the low-level dungeon where you'd be like facing up level 1 and level 5 monsters, and if you're high level, all of a sudden something like way higher than your actual current level will spawn in this dungeon, and then it will kill you.
Oof.
It just outright kills you. So the whole thing is like you have to kind of figure out where a player should be at the point, like what kind of skill level requires them to have to advance. And like the more interesting or the more different your system is, you have to kind of figure out the balancing as you kind of progress. You have to kind of wonder, all right, so if a player is this low level, or if the player that has this kind of stats, what kind of monsters should they be facing at this point in the game? And in the very next dungeon, does the skill level need to be the same, or does it need to be higher or lower, depending on like
Yeah.
where they are? Like,
And-
there's a whole bunch of different ways balancing kind of has to occur, and it's all about like what you said, consistency.
Yeah.
Like what
Some
feels
games
more
it's
consistent.
easier. Some games it's easy, like a platformer. Each level gets progressively harder. That's not hard. But an RPG or a fighting game, like Bash or Ross here, are going to get really difficult with balancing.
Competitive first-person shooters, for example.
Competitive
Like
multiplayer
Counter
games.
Strike, Counter Strike is constantly evolving
With
I
the
think,
meta.
with the
The
meta.
meta, and the meta evolves with the balancing changes.
Yeah, it does.
So Bash, what are your thoughts on balancing? What's your philosophy, and how do you tackle it in your video game?
Well, I'm still really in the early stages with my game, so balancing hasn't come too much into it because I really have to do. My philosophy is that playtesting is the surest way to find out your balance problems, and obviously a versus shooter or something like that. It's pretty obvious. You just have to test it. You have to see who can take advantage of of the systems that you put in place and how, and you need to figure out if that's a good or a bad thing with what you want your game to be. If it's overpowered, underpowered, if it should have a different system in place rather than different than the one you already have. Yeah. So basically, playtesting is the best way to figure out what exactly you want your game to be and how the system should function within it, and balance it through that.
Okay. In my quote unquote game, this is I haven't thought about balancing. I've never even considered that because there's no combat system. But a philosophy in the world building is chaos. The world is very subtly chaotic. So I'm wondering if I want to incorporate that into the balancing, where I don't incorporate balancing, like a Morrowind thing, where Morrowind has no balancing. The whole world is set in stone from the very start, and you just gotta hope you built a good character and your profit levels when you approach an area. That's just an interesting way of balancing too. Is not balancing. You just build the world, and the player has to figure it out.
Mm.
And so you can get really overpowered and really underpowered builds.
You
That's
pretty
kinda what
easily
my role
learn
is.
where you can go and where you can't go.
Yeah,
Morrowind.
it's kind of
Balancing
what my games.
balancing doesn't actually have to attribute to gameplay as well. Balance could also be talked about in story and plot or
Story.
design,
And graphics and
in
colors.
graphics and colors.
And
Yeah, but
music.
balancing also
Anything.
kind of
In my game,
like just to go back to what Jake
Cowbell.
said, balance kind of can set the theme for you. Like if you have this theme where if you only feel like you're going to be successful with certain builds of characters like in Morrowind, then that kind of has this perspective like players really feel hopeless in this world and they have to keep training themselves in order to be better.
That's kind
Like
of fun too.
it contributes to theme. It contributes to how the player has to experience and feel the game.
Yeah, like
How
Dark
the
Souls does
player-
that too.
Yeah, how the player interprets it. It's
there's
like
one very interesting theme that I'm keeping consistent in my game. It's a theme of what a player is made up of. There's this thing called affinity, and there's a player is made up of 3 affinities: might, mind, and brisk.
Gay.
Oh.
So might would be like warrior, mind would be like mage, and brisk would be an archer. And you can combine those affinities to create other classes, which is a really big part of my game, which is like it's like that system of dividing people's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. Jon Marc, how does balancing in your game work?
Um,
Is
I mean,
it
it's a little-
basic? Is it like
I guess it's
Platform?
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be basic because it's a stage-based game. I guess honestly, it's cliche, but
There is no balancing, right?
just get
Well,
good. Like that's kind of
no,
Yeah, that's it.
There
kind
is
of
no
it.
bouncing.
There's
Yeah,
no
There's
balancing
no
in that
getting
game.
stronger.
There's balancing in that you want the difficulty progression to be not a
Yeah.
very sharp curve, or maybe you do. It really depends on what
just
experience
want
you
it to
want
be a
for the
curve.
player.
Is
Yeah,
it
You
gonna
want
be
it to be
more,
a curve though.
Yeah.
is it gonna
Well,
be
also,
more like a square root curve where like it spikes up really suddenly, but then just kind of maintains this difficulty over
yeah.
a longer period?
I think the
I don't like
another
it. I like
another axis that I'm going to try to balance is like I mean, I would like some kind of progression of difficulty, but that's going to not be the priority for me. The biggest priority is just that each level feels different. So
That's
Yeah.
good.
Different
That's
gimmick.
a bouncing in a way.
different-
It doesn't get stale. That's
yeah,
the
I
way
just
a
don't.
bounce
I just
should.
don't want it to I just don't want it to get stale. So like sure, I could look at a kind of progression curve as the first level you only go up against 3 enemies, and then the next level you go up against 5 enemies.
Oh.
Wow.
I could do something like that, but fundamentally fighting 3
That's
enemies
gay.
versus fighting 5 enemies isn't that big of. It's not that
Changing.
different. So
Yeah.
That's why you need to do 100.
So taking
Yeah.
us back to the first question, what is balancing? It depends on the game entirely, because Ross's game balancing is how strong are the enemies, how strong is the player, how well do they do against it, versus Wyatt's game balancing is how fresh are the levels, how much fun am I having. You're balancing out the creativity and the diversity of the game, while Ross's game, he's
Yeah.
balancing out the combat and the difficulty level. So it depends on the game, it depends on what you focus on balancing.
yeah,
Well, I feel like it's more like a base of consistency, you know. Again, when
With
Bash
Ross's game,
mentioned that balancing in Jon Marc's game would be adding a difficulty curve. That's already consistency, right? Because you want it to be consistent with how the difficulty goes up, instead of having it spike. If it spikes and it's not balanced, that's already bad.
unless it's like
If it spikes,
I
it
don't know.
changes the curve entirely.
Exactly.
it could be
It
how
really
it's
It's not
balanced.
depends.
balanced or consistent anymore.
It really depends on what you want to do with your difficulty too. That's like if you're conveying something through the story there. Like if it's supposed to spike there and it goes down, you have this brief period where you're relaxing and it goes back up. It's really flexible as long as you keep it consistent
Balancing.
as long as you keep the balancing consistent in a way that makes sense for the story or what's happening in the game or the gameplay,
Right.
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
balancing, it's a consistent thing. That's a good way of putting it. Because Wyatt's game is consistently different. Bash's game, and then your game's going to be like consistently, I don't know, fair,
Yeah.
not fucked.
Trying.
My game, my balancing could be consistently random, that you don't know what's
Yeah.
coming. Next thing you know, you're
I
fucked.
mean-
More with like you're consistently adapting.
I'm not gonna say my game is fair. I'm gonna say that it's. Well, I mean, I'm gonna say it makes sense, but I'm not gonna say like it's always gonna be fair
It's
towards the
yeah.
player.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's
There's-
consistently. You can predict it.
You can.
know
It's
what's coming
predictable.
next.
Yeah. Any mistake you make should be your mistake, or
Mhm.
any
Yeah,
mistake.
I like that.
Any way you get punished should be your mistake.
Okay.
A punishment for never mind. I'm messing up my words.
I actually have a pretty good question that I haven't really figured out myself. Do you prefer to, I guess in the long scheme of things, do you prefer to make games that satisfy some kind of like personal desires, or would you rather make games that maybe it's not maybe it's not exactly what you personally want to make, but other people have fun with it? Or I guess alternatively, do your personal desires and what people find fun align?
Well, personally, I want to make a game that I envision.
I want to make a game for me. I want to envision a game and play it. I want to
Right,
make
yeah.
a
You
game
basically,
for
are you
what I
making your
envision.
game for you or for others? That's the question.
I'm making it for me. I'm not making it for others. So if I make it for others, I just make another Call of Duty or something. That's easy. I'm making something for me.
Activision's
Easy
looking
I
at
money.
think
you.
you want to make something that represents you, but something you wouldn't be afraid to share with other people.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have to be
Something-
proud
something-
of what you make.
Something you feel that other people should enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
Someone
make, you
should
don't make a
enjoy it.
game for making a game for a market is stupid because you don't have it's not a passion project at that point, so it's not something you want to do.
Well, I don't necessarily think that it means making money, but like it's something you feel comfortable sharing with your friends, or even sharing
Yeah.
with strangers, and just watching them have fun with it.
Yeah,
But
it's
I won't be
something that-
comfortable.
Well,
I won't be
anyone
comfortable
want to
sharing something. Nice talking, guys. Sick communication. I
Go ahead.
I won't be comfortable sharing something with someone else if I'm not proud of it. If I'm not satisfied with it, I'm just automatically not comfortable with that.
Yeah,
It's not what I wanted.
In my case, I started out with my concept. I want to make this game for me, Grapple Gunners. I want it to be my vision, where I have two little tanks fighting against each other, and that's me. But it's going to evolve against what others put in, because, okay, in my situation, I've put it out, I've made this Discord server, and I put out builds every so often, people can critique it. And this way, it's not necessarily exactly my vision, but it's still at core what I want it to be. So it will evolve, it'll stray away, possibly, from what I exactly want it to be, but hopefully it'll still come out something that I originally wanted. I don't know. It's
Okay.
It's weird
Yeah,
like that.
it's not exactly what you envisioned, but at least you have a game. You know, like
Yes.
you're the only
This
one
is
who
my
has
game.
actual finished game.
And
here.
you know what? Your vision might evolve.
Holy shit! You're the
Vision
only
might-
one who actually made a game in this group.
Who?
By me?
Wyatt?
Yeah,
Bash.
Vash.
Wyatt made one.
Wyatt
Yeah, he
made
did.
unfinished game.
I guess, but I
My
Well,
game
no,
isn't
you made
Oh, the
finished
text
either.
adventure. The text adventure's
Draskmere.
finished.
Draskmere was finished, dude.
guess it's done,
Your first
but
game.
it's not fun, so who cares?
It's not what you envisioned.
Yeah, Grapple Gunners isn't technically finished either, but it's completely playable, so I don't know.
See, I'm aiming
It's a
for
build.
perfection. I'm aiming for
Real.
perfection, so it's taking me a long time.
Same.
I have
Well,
a
no, I'm not
vision.
aiming for perfection.
I have a vision. I want to actually see it. The problem with
Same.
my game design, the way I work, is I'm not
Like-
continuing on until I see in it what I wanted to see in the first place.
Well, it's kinda,
Yeah.
like, can I bring this back just to SFD for like
Ooh.
Yeah.
5 seconds?
That's how we're gonna close
this-
it off. We're closing it off with this.
Yeah, we're gonna close it off with SFD. I think this is the perfect way to close it because this is exactly kind of what the developers themselves are going through. These guys are making something they want to, their vision. I mean, we as a community can have as much input on it as they want, but it's something that they feel they want to share with them.
Yeah.
You know what? We're enjoying it. We're all here. We're all here because of it.
Well,
So
But
I
it's
just
their
think
game. And it's their
Yeah.
vision.
At the end of the day,
And so-
it's their game and it's their vision.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's, just
everyone.
that, it's just that the biggest problem with that is that SFD bad.
Yeah, it is.
wait, guys, the Mythologic Interactive motto is actually they want to make games that they want to play.
On
Yeah.
a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Exactly.
budget, quote unquote.
So they're not
But,
making them for us. They're making a game so they can play it. They're making a game
They've
so
said
they
this
can
over
play
and over.
I wonder how often they play Superfighters Deluxe.
it. Not very often.
Well, no.
Every
so you
only
could-
during updates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much every other week, if then.
So, wait, what was it? Oh, you guys can say something else.
I'm pretty sure they
have
play it
nothing
just so
else
they
to
can get
say.
a. Yeah, I
I
mean.
think-
We have to close this on a good note.
Yeah, we
all
do.
right.
That's
That's a good note.
Harmony.
Harmony.
Oh.
Harmonize.
Oh, God.
Sing about harmony.
Well,
It's harmonize.